Johnny. When the invisible woman Susan saw the elusive younger brother in Kraft's hands, her eyes were red, and the restrictions on Beja relaxed for a moment. Look at Claw Meow. The blue light blade cut open the unstable force field ball in an instant, and Beja quickly slipped out of it, and then scratched Susan's face with the long light blade. Cats are originally a kind of creatures that do their own way, so even if Beja has been activated by Kraft using technology, his nature has not changed much. So Beja, who had been trapped by Susan for so long, had already suffocated the fire, and completely forgot Kraft's explanation of not making life. Susan. At the moment Reed Richards and Ben Grimm are far away and there is no time to rescue Susan. And Phil Coulson and other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, not to mention, they never thought that Beja, who was just a friendly discussion before, would suddenly kill him. Facing the dangerous light blade in front of her, the invisible female Susan's mind was nothing but at the moment, and she even forgot to use her ability to block her. Fortunately, there was also Angela who came with Kraft, who was an information life. She took over B's T-Mall armor at the first time, and controlled the armor to take away the light blade from her paw. Go back, and send Beja to Kraft's side in a small call from Roar. Meow. Angela, why are you stopping me? I'm going to tear that woman to pieces. After Beja was sent to Kraft, Angela forced her to put away her armor. The little black cat felt very upset about it, and her 4 small paws were constantly flapping in Kraft's arms. Phil Coulson, who rushed over with his subordinates, couldn't help narrowing his eyes when he heard the name Angela. In this way, as they had guessed, Kraft had already mastered teleportation ability and artificial intelligence. Kraft didn't notice the strangeness of Phil Coulson. He threw the unconscious Johnny aside, then controlled the angry kitten in his arms with his hands, and gently stroked her back. It's not that. Isn't it just being grouped into a cat ball? You usually do this at home, isn't it cute? As always, Kraft comforted the little black cat in his arms with his choking comfort. Beja also very obediently gave up the trouble of finding the invisible woman, and in turn grabbed and bit Kraft's hands. You are the cat ball. Brother, you are here. While Kraft comforted the little black cat, Quinn also flew down from the sky, fell in Kraft's footsteps and flicked his tail. I'm not as embarrassed as a stupid cat. Take it to death, stupid dog. Beja instantly changed the target, broke free from Kraft's arms, and rushed towards Quinn. Are you afraid of you? Stupid cat. Rua. Quinn was not to be outdone, and fought with Beja. This kind of daily craft has long been used to it, and he simply didn't bother to take care of these 2 little guys, looking at the magic 3 missing 1 man on the side, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who just wanted to rescue the invisible woman and had to be exposed. Yeah, isn't this an agent for Dulcin? Long time no see. Tolson. Puff. Sky and the others couldn't help but laugh when Kraft called Roar to his parents. Glancing secretly at his subordinates, the Phil Coulson agent revealed his signature, smile of the old man, and said to Kraft, didn't we just meet at your press conference not long ago? Really? So you were there at the time? Kraft scratched his head, then spread his hands. Sorry, I was troubled by the hammer god at the time, and I didn't see you. It's okay, it's all trivial. Phil Coulson shook his head with a wry smile. He looked at the thunderbolt that Kraft had thrown at his feet, and found that his chest was still undulating, and he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Just saw Kraft appearing with an unconscious thunderbolt. Phil Coulson thought he was killed by Kraft. S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't know what Kraft wanted to do with Thunderbolt at this time. Phil Coulson guessed that he was going to exchange Thunderbolt for the trapped little black cat, but he didn't expect that the cat would take the opportunity to get out of it. However, such a development is actually in line with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s plan. If the 2 sides negotiated, their S.H.I.E.L.D. would not be able to profit from it and provoked the hostility of the Fantastic Four to Kraft. So just now when Mr. Fantastic wanted to steal the fire from Kraft's feet while he was soothing the cat, Phil Coulson agent also specifically stopped it. The reason was definitely that Reed Richards would further stimulate Kraft. Special. Although Reed Richards thinks this reason is a bit far-fetched, Susan, who is worried about his younger brother, agrees with Phil Coulson's statement. The main reason is that the experience of almost dying just now scared the invisible woman a bit. She was afraid that Reed's behavior would stimulate the ferocious little black cat again, and what should I do if Johnny was tossed to death with a paw? Since Kraft showed up with Johnny, there is still more to talk about, so Susan didn't want to take any more risks. As for whether Kraft could deprive Johnny of his abilities in such a short period of time, it was impossible for Susan or Reed. If it is such an easy thing to deprive them of their abilities, then when Ben Grimm was in pain due to physical mutation, they would not be so helpless. Although this is also related to Reed Richards not spending too much time on it, it is clear that the 2 couples have ignored this issue. That Kraft, right? Susan took 2 steps forward cautiously. Can I trouble you to return Johnny to us? I know he caused you a lot of trouble. I will go back. I will educate him well. Probably because the three of them were crushed and beaten by a cat and a dog, and they were almost killed by a cat. The invisible woman's attitude was much more restrained than at the beginning, and her tone was very gentle, for fear that she would be anxious if she was not careful. Kraft and his pet. What compensation do you need? We will try our best to satisfy, only hope that you can forgive Johnny's recklessness. Kraft. Please forgive them. You didn't suffer any loss anyway, did you? Mr. Stone is just a little short-tempered. As a superhero, he has done a lot of good things. You don't have to be because of this little thing. Just grab him and don't let go. Phil Coulson on the side heard that Susan was subdued and hurriedly helped out, but what he said was the lines that S.H.I.E.L.D. analyzed based on Kraft's personality that could make him feel uncomfortable. Sure enough, Kraft, who had an indifferent expression, frowned immediately after listening to Phil Coulson's help. It's just that Kraft didn't say the irony as Phil Coulson thought, but after a glance at him, he tipped Johnny Stone to the side and kicked him to Reed Richards. I'm so sorry. You were still a little bit late. Kraft spread out his hands and put on an expression of regret. This guy's abilities have been deprived by me, so I don't want to make any compensation, but you will probably have to change your name to the Fantastic Three in the future. What? The expressions of Reed and others changed drastically. But Phil Coulson lowered his head silently and sighed in relief. How can you do this? Reed Richards stared at Kraft angrily. Before they were chased and beaten by a cat and a dog, and they were scolded by a dog with very ugly words for so long. In the end, their fiancé almost died under the paws of the cat. These were enough to make him, an arrogant and talented scientist, hold back. Stomach fire. But for the sake of his unconscious brother-in-law, Reed Richards finally endured it. However, what he didn't expect was that Kraft could actually deprive Johnny of his abilities in such a short period of time, which made Reed Richards, who was beaten in the face, a little embarrassed. You know, when Ben Grimm found him and asked for help to solve the mutation problem, he said that this kind of thing is very difficult and can't be done in a short time. Coupled with the sense of crisis that his own abilities were targeted, Reed Richards' attitude suddenly became bad. And the invisible woman who never wanted her brother to be deprived of his abilities was also glaring at Kraft, plus she had almost died under a cat's claw before. Susan at the moment was already a bit dazzled by anger. What right do you have? What right do you have to deprive Johnny of his abilities? Susan screamed and fired a force field shockwave at Kraft. The shockwave invisible of the invisible woman is invisible and fast. Naturally, it is too late to respond with the reaction speed of Kraft's level of ordinary people. But fortunately, Kraft himself knew this weakness, and sometimes he had to face the pounce from his good sister Aurelie, so he made an emergency response device for himself early. The Dreamland armor automatically dressed in an instant, and Kraft was slightly deflected by the invisible woman's shockwave. So, is this a sign of war? Kraft under the mask squinted his eyes. Originally, after depriving the Thunderbolt of ability, he didn't intend to continue to care about it, but these superhero didn't seem to intend to cooperate. In fact, Susan's sudden shot also frightened Reed and Ben. From the beginning, the Stone Man did not agree with the continued confrontation between the two sides. He felt that Johnny's loss of power was worthy. He didn't need to stand up for him at all, and he was also affected by the incident today and began to show his friends. Had some grievances. In Ben's mind, Reed is definitely one of the smartest people in the world, so when Ben asked him for help, Reed said that he could not solve the problem of mutation in a while, so he easily believed NS. But now Kraft took less than half a day to eliminate Johnny's ability, which made Ben Grimm couldn't help but start to doubt the friendship between him and Reed. That is to say, Ben has now accepted the identity of the superhero of the Stone Man. If he had just mutated, he would have turned his face with Reed now. Although Reed Richards is also unhappy with Kraft, his unhappy is more due to his own ingenuity being challenged and he has no intention of starting a fight. First of all, the conflict between them has not yet risen to the point where they need to fight, and secondly, the two pets of the three of them who beat Kraft are so strenuous. At this time, they will provoke Kraft. Isn't this looking for a beat? Please wait. This is a misunderstanding. Reed Richards waved his hand quickly to explain, but Kraft, who was already attacked, wouldn't care about him. Raising his hand to Susan was an energy cannon. Phil Coulson saw the two parties fought as Chief Fury wanted, and quickly retreated to the side with his subordinates and Johnny Stone who was still in a coma. Now is a good opportunity to collect Kraft information. But Sky was a little eager to try. Sure enough, it's not that a family doesn't enter the house, the Fantastic Four is too much. Sky, who has a fan filter, was crooked from the beginning. She suggested to Phil Coulson, "Sir, didn't you mean to prevent their conflict from escalating?"
Just knock Reed Richards and them all down. Won't the conflict stop?
Don't mess up. Phil Coulson glared at the little girl of Kraft speechlessly, not to mention that the person they shield was actually targeting was Kraft. Even if they really wanted to prevent the conflict, they couldn't pull it off the sidelines. But even if Phil Coulson dismissed Sky's suggestion, the magic trio couldn't hold on for long. Kraft didn't even need Beja and Quinn's help, and the three of Reed could not fight back. Power.
Although Reed Richards knows that Kraft has a certain fighting capacity, he usually hides too deeply, and because of his age, plus Reed is here for negotiation, so they didn't do anything. Preparation for battle.
If Reed had prepared enough, or had a certain understanding of Kraft's situation, then they wouldn't be so embarrassed today. Wow, ha 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 ha. You want to trouble me at your level? More than a dozen metal balls broke away from Kraft's battle armor, floating around him and turning into small forts, pouring energy bombs frantically at Reed Richards and others. The invisible female Susan gritted her teeth to support the energy shield, and her heart was full of regret. If she hadn't been blinded by anger, the relationship between them and Kraft wouldn't be as bad as it is now. Oops. Susan suddenly felt her body soft. She knew that this was because her use of abilities had reached the limit. The energy field protecting Reed and others was instantly destroyed by the dense energy bombs, and the stone man blocked Reed and Susan without hesitation. Boom boom boom. A series of explosions obscured Phil Coulson's sight. Although according to the character profile made by the psychologist of S.H.I.E.L.D., Kraft should not be easy to kill, but Phil Coulson is still a little worried. What if he accidentally misses it?
Fortunately, Kraft had no follow-up actions after this bombardment. Phil Coulson also suppressed the thought of letting Sky and the others intervene, just staring at Reed Richards, who was still alive and dead in the smoke and dust. Et al.
The flying smoke and dust gradually dispersed, revealing the bumpy ground and the figures of Reed and others.
Because of Ben's protection, Reed and Susan didn't suffer any harm, they were just fainted, and the stone man who stood in the front was quite miserable. He was half kneeling on the ground at the moment and lost the same. He lost consciousness, and his stone body was covered with cracks and gaps, which looked like a dilapidated statue.
I don't know what exactly Ben's body is. Now not only is blood flowing from his mouth and nose, but a lot of blood is also flowing out of the cracks in his body. Kraft didn't mean to kill them. He saw that if Ben Grimm didn't stop the bleeding, he might lose too much blood and die. He returned blood. Speaking of which, to replenish the blood of the stone man, should I switch to water magic or earth magic? Wait a moment. Phil Coulson saw Kraft raising his hand to Reed and the others who were unconscious, thinking that he still wanted to continue the attack, and hurriedly stopped him. However, Kraft didn't bother to pay attention to him, and directly activated the recovery technique in the force magic. Although he also wanted to try the effect of using the earth magic, but he didn't seem to be able to do it at first, and there was not so much time for him. Experiment. After filling up the blood for Ben Grimm, Kraft snapped his fingers again, floating in the metal ball beside him, 3 of them ejected long needles, and then flew to the unconscious Reed Richards and the others. Each of them got a shot. Reed and Susan can't see much yet, but the stone man has changed from an ugly stone man back to his original human appearance under the noses of Phil Coulson and others. This is so different from the plan. Seeing all of this, Phil Coulson felt that the plan of the self-administrator was going to be cold. Eddie Bullock rang the doorbell of Kraft's house with a nervous mood. At this time Eddie actually knew that the mysterious person who caught him in the riot was Kraft, and Kraft himself revealed it to him through the Mutant Brotherhood. After learning about it, Eddie was also very well behaved. No leaks everywhere. Kraft took the initiative to release his kindness. If he is still ignorant, wouldn't he be dying? So after learning about the Thunderbolt, Eddie Bullock gritted his teeth and decided to take the initiative to interview Kraft, and by the way, to confirm whether he would come to trouble himself in the future. Before coming, Eddie also specifically called Kraft roar through Pietro, and Kraft also agreed to this interview. However, his previous experience of being placed on the operating table by Kraft really impressed Eddie Bullock, so as long as he thought of meeting that terrible boy again, he still couldn't help but feel a little guilty. You are such a bullshit, Eddie. The venom in his body mocked him as always. With me, you won't die even if you are dissected by him again. What's to worry about? Aren't you afraid that he will use ultrasound to deal with us?
Eddie rolled his eyes and retorted. What does he picture? Venom was more transparent than Eddie, not to mention that he already has a symbiote that is stronger than me, Riot, for his research. Have you forgotten that he found us and asked some questions? What? Maybe those of my fellow clan have already fallen into his hands. Does it make sense to have one more of me?
Well, what you said makes sense. Eddie agreed with Venom's claim, and finally he was not as worried as he was at the beginning. Click. The door was opened, and Eddie discovered that it was a black kitten with a red scarf. The little black cat tilted his head and glanced at himself, then turned his head and walked inside the house. Cat. Venom was about to move in Eddie's body. Can I eat it? If you want to be broken into pieces by Kraft. Eddie Bullock shrugged, easily dispelling Venom's thoughts of death. Cautiously followed the little black cat into the room, a symbiote of one person, one cat circling around the ground, and walked to the backyard. Beja glanced strangely at the two-legged beast that followed him, and then slid slightly, jumped on a cat-climbing frame standing in the backyard, found a comfortable place, lay down and began to bask in the sun. Eddie Bullock. Venom. What are you doing with this cat? I've got water in my head. Eddie wiped her face awkwardly, then turned back into the room amidst Venom's ridicule. Just as Eddie walked back into the house, hesitation was hesitation. Should he find a direction to walk around, or when he shouted to find someone to lead the way, suddenly a large number of light spots gathered in front of him, and then formed a three-dimensional red arrow. Well, it's an amazing technology. Eddie looked around, but couldn't find any projection device. After a sigh, he walked in the direction indicated by the arrow. It didn't take long for Eddie Bullock to arrive in the living room. Kraft was sitting on the sofa with his sister Alice Lee sitting next to them. Both of them were wearing the latest virtual helmets from Dreamland. Obviously it is playing a game. But after Eddie Bullock walked into the living room, Kraft seemed to have received the signal, stepped back from the game, and took off the virtual helmet from his head. It's been a long time, Mr. Bullock. Kraft put his helmet on the coffee table and pointed to the empty sofa. Sit down and eat whatever you want on the table. It's all prepared for you. The symbiote needs to eat a lot of food. I know that. Oh, yes, thank you. Eddie Bullock sat down somewhat restrained, but the venom in his body was not so polite. A head came out of Eddie's body, and he opened his mouth to bite at the food on the table. It's still your majesty. Eddie is a stingy kid. Venom was eating the food on the table while complaining about his host. When Kraft had been caught for an experiment before, he had done it all the time. I'm just a reporter. How can I compare with the actual helm of Dreamland Corporation? After Venom's gag and Kraft's easygoing attitude, Eddie Bullock finally relaxed. He first gave Kraft a flattering, and then took out the recording pen and notebook for the interview. Began this interview. Regarding the matter between you and the Fantastic Four, can I trouble you to elaborate on it from beginning to end? In fact, at this time, some impatient reporters, based on Quinn's scolding, roughly restored a plot and released it in a hurry. Since the two aspects of Dreamland and superhero are involved, the news aroused widespread discussion as soon as it was released. It's just that the media can't produce specific evidence. Although the people are also condemning the Thunderbolt, most of them are only out of the discussion stage and are not completely convinced. It definitely has something to do with their previous reputation. There are usually a lot of people who hack them, so this time, many people think it is another self-directed and self-acted performance of the Fantastic Four black fans.
In fact, Kraft does not know what the current public opinion is. The transformation of the Dark Star is almost complete. He has been very busy on O'Reilly Star recently. How can I pay attention to this, if not suddenly received Pete Luo's phone? He is still in outer space.
Kraft, who wanted to end soon, told Eddie Bullock about the causes and consequences, and even handed over the surveillance video of when the Thunderbolt broke in and the subsequent battle with Reed Richards and the others. You
are so domineering. Eddie Bullock gave him a thumbs up in admiration after listening to Kraft. The famous Fantastic Four was expelled because of this incident, and it was so dark humorous. In addition, Eddie was very speechless about Johnny Stone. Eddie didn't know the bad things he did before. He even heard about some things that were suppressed by the government and were not reported on a large scale. After all, they the members of the Inquirer Alliance are super ability, and they can always get some more secret information.
As a fan of Captain America, Eddie Bullock has never admitted that Thunderbolt is the so-called superhero, and even he thinks that Ben Grimm can barely be regarded as a hero in the Fantastic Four. In fact, there have never been less reports about the Fantastic Four, but in general, the official media will come out to wash the ground for these troublesome superheroes, so there is not much public opinion. But the situation is different now. The attitude of the officials who helped cover up in the past seems to be very ambiguous. Others may not have noticed it yet, but as a senior reporter, Eddie clearly discovered that the official control of public opinion in this matter is less powerful than in the past, but it is not inactive. So, it is officially because the Fantastic Four have lost their super ability and plan to abandon them? After learning that the ability of the Fantastic Four had been deprived of Kraft, Eddie naturally guessed that way. I haven't given up completely now. Maybe I want to see if they can get back their ability, right? As a senior reporter, Eddie Bullock is still very keen in this regard, but he has some problems in guessing the direction. S.H.I.E.L.D. is not planning to give up the Fantastic Four. Even if they lose super ability, Reed Richards' mind is still very valuable. How could they just give up like this? They are doing this now, just wanting the Fantastic Four to continue to oppose Kraft, but not to the point of life and death enemies. As long as the wind is not in the right direction, Nick Fury will naturally strengthen public opinion control. These things definitely don't matter to Eddie Bullock. As a reporter, he only needs to give the public the truth. With the release of Eddie Bullock's press release and the evidence he gave in the media, the reputation of Thunderbolt suddenly fell to the bottom. If there were some fans who admired him because of his powerful ability and public personality, then after knowing that his ability was deprived of Kraft, these power fans have also abandoned them. The current Johnny Stone can be said to be disgusting and can't find a supporter. Not only that, but those who had been bullied by Johnny in the past also stood up and spoke out in the media, denouncing the bully superhero of Thunderbolt.
Among them, there are definitely some people who fish in troubled waters, but many media have no intention to verify, so the heat is not white or white. Anyway, in their opinion, the former superhero of Thunderbolt has been abandoned, and it is better to use waste to let them make a profit. Wave fast money.
And the former superhero who was criticized by the media and cast aside by the people, now just an ordinary person, Johnny Stone. At the moment he was staying in his home, he collapsed on the sofa, staring blankly. The ceiling was decadent. Being deprived of the ability of pride, this was a big blow to Johnny Stone, not to mention that because of his own recklessness, it also caused Reed and the others to lose the ability. Since waking up, Johnny has been hiding in the house alone, constantly numbing himself with alcohol. Johnny now has a face full of beard and a sour odor, just like a tramp on the street. He reached out and fumbled on the coffee table next to him, grabbed a can of unfinished beer and poured it into his mouth, then grabbed a bag of cornflakes and poured some in his mouth at random, after chewing mechanically for a few times. Swallowed it.
During this process, Johnny Stone had no expression on his face, and his eyes were kept out of focus, as if the soul of the whole person had been taken away, and he was eating entirely on the instinct of the body.
Click. The door of the room was opened, and a slim figure walked in. Susan Stone looked at her humiliated brother on the sofa, sighed softly, and walked to the window to open the curtains and windows. The fresh air blowing from outside made the smell of the house a little better, and the sun's rays also made Johnny, who had no visions, narrowed his eyes. Huh. Susan, you're here. Under the stimulation of the sun, Johnny's eyes returned to focus, and then he found his sister standing by the sofa. Are you going to keep going like this? Susan frowned and looked down at the decadent Johnny. She had persuaded him to scold him before, but it was a pity that Johnny became sober after she woke up. She only knew how to live and die. However, Susan didn't want to give up her brother. She still came to persuade him every day and help him clean up the room. Facing his sister's question, Johnny lay on the sofa, his eyes lowered and said nothing. Susan sighed helplessly, shook her head and began to clean up the messy room in front of her. Johnny glanced blankly at his busy sister, then struggled to get up from the sofa and staggered towards the bathroom. Vomit. Listening to Johnny's vomiting from the bathroom, Susan bit her lip. Even if she knew it was Johnny's fault, she still hated Kraft, who was interviewed. After cleaning up the garbage in the room, Susan walked to the bathroom door and knocked on the door lightly. I'm leaving first, don't drink so much alcohol. There was a vague answer from the bathroom, and Susan sighed again, then left Johnny's house. Click. As Susan's footsteps faded away, it wasn't until the door closed that Johnny's remorseful dull cries sounded in the bathroom. Susan, who didn't know that her brother was crying bitterly, walked out of Johnny's house. At this time, she had covered her appearance with sunglasses, scarf and hat, and walked quickly to the parking lot not far away. With the outbreak of public opinion, Johnny's original residence was quickly exposed, and the following protest crowd forced Susan to find Johnny a new, remote and quiet residence. And every time she came to clean up the house for Johnny, she had to be careful not to reveal her whereabouts. In fact, Reed Richards was harassed by some, just people, at the beginning, but they didn't hold on for long. The main reason is that Reed's experiments run wild from time to time, so in order not to affect others as much as possible, he arranged his laboratory and residence in the outskirts away from the crowd. Those who ran to protest came several times and found that this place was far and remote, and no one came to watch there, just acts, and gradually they didn't bother to waste time on Reed's side. Driving the car to Reed's laboratory, Susan found her busy fiancé.
Reed, is there any result of the research? It's done. Reed stopped his work. Based on the data when I observed the cosmic storm, I have successfully simulated the energy of the same wavelength as the cosmic storm, and I am now doing the final debugging. Ben, who was lowering his head to adjust the mechanism on the side, raised his head, glanced at Reed and Susan, and then lowered his head silently to continue working. For Ben,
who cannot restore the human appearance after mutation, it is actually inappropriate superhero, and it is good to continue to do research silently at a glance. It's just that his friend Reed wanted to restore the identity of Mr. Fantastic, so he had no choice but to help, but he also made up his mind that he would not become a stone man again. Reed, you can start. Ben Grimm closed the lid, turned on the switch, and said after taking a look at the stable reading on the meter. I see. Reed Roar sighed, opened the door of the instrument in front of him, and walked in. Start it. Ben, who was next to the controller through the glass, nodded, Reed Richards said. It was not the first time that Ben didn't say a word to cooperate with Reed, and reached out and pressed the button to release the simulated cosmic storm.
Inside the instrument, Reed's body began to mutate again under the energy wash of his own production. His body was stretched and twisted at will like rubber, posing a variety of strange shapes in the cabin.
But as the instrument turned off, Reed found that the cosmic energy in his body was rapidly dissipating, and his power disappeared again in a short while. What's wrong? Reed. Susan asked Reed with a solemn expression after she came out, and asked with concern. My ability has disappeared again. Reed pursed his lips. I still underestimated Kraft. I am worthy of being a genius boy whom Tony Stark values. How come? Isn't your body restored to the state of a rubber man just now? Susan covered her mouth with her hand in surprised roar. Kraft should have injected something that can neutralize or dissipate cosmic energy in our body. As a genius scientist, Reed quickly figured out the methods used by Kraft based on the information given by S.H.I.E.L.D. We need to have a comprehensive physical examination first. Reed still had nothing to say about his technology. After finding the right direction, he quickly found the nanomachines that Kraft had put in their bodies. What a great kid. Although hostile to each other, Reed still praised Kraft. Compared with the use of other energy or medicine to neutralize the cosmic energy, this kind of nanomachinery that can dissipate the cosmic energy has a longer onset time and is more troublesome to solve. Kraft recently developed a virtual helmet, right? Reed Richards suddenly aroused the thought of using technology to compete with Kraft. After we take out the nanomachines in the body, we will also develop a virtual reality product to compete with Dreamland. Unlike those companies that can only watch Dreamland make a big profit with Dreamland World, Reed has the ability to create a virtual world that can't lose to Dreamland World. As for the other businesses of Dreamland, he has no interest. The technology is too low and not challenging. The only interesting mechanical prosthesis has now gradually withdrawn from the mainstream market and has become a high-end customized product for the wealthy. There is no point in competing with Kraft on this. What Reed Richards didn't know was that he did exactly what Nick Fury did. S.H.I.E.L.D. actually didn't intend to actually do anything to Kraft, and even the plan to eat two ends was not their main purpose. The real purpose of Nick Fury is to formulate a defensive plan against Kraft. Because Kraft is very strong and not under the control of S.H.I.E.L.D., he has never had a good attitude towards American officials, so Nick Fury feels that he needs to plan ahead, something. It's just that Kraft usually reveals too few things, and he doesn't like to be a superhero like Peter Parker. S.H.I.E.L.D. has no place to collect more information. That's why Nick Fury helped him find a few opponents, let them get a little friction from time to time, and then their S.H.I.E.L.D. could take advantage of this opportunity to rub some black technology or something. In fact, in Nick Fury's opinion, Tony Stark should be the best superhero to compete with Kraft. It's a pity that before S.H.I.E.L.D. paid attention to Kraft, he already had friendship with Stark, which made Nick Fury have to find Thor, an alien. But now Reed Richards is not bad. Although Tony Stark is a lot worse in terms of funding, he will not lose to Stark in terms of invention and creation. In addition to Fantastic Four and Thor, Nick Fury also prepared other opponents for Kraft. Bah! The heavy metal door slowly opened, and a Cyclops in a black cloak walked into a cell of the Raft prison. Oh, see who's here. Isn't this our famous Chief Fury? Why do you have time to visit my old stuff today? The only criminal in this cell saw the incoming person and smiled in cold roar to Nick Fury. Long time no see, Mr. Norman Osborn. Nick Fury ignored Norman Osborn's yin and yang and nodded at him. The prisoner in this cell is the old Green Goblin Norman Osborn. With the experimental data provided by Harry Osborn, S.H.I.E.L.D. has already solved the side effects originally on Norman Osborn, so his current thinking is completely normal. And S.H.I.E.L.D. has never released Norman Osborn. It is definitely not for legal justice, but just wants to hang Harry Osborn to work for them, and want to squeeze some benefits from him. However, whether it is the old Green Goblin or Norman Osborn, they are both old and cunning masters. How could they be taken advantage of by S.H.I.E.L.D.? He had guessed S.H.I.E.L.D.'s thoughts a long time ago, and secretly explained when Harry visited the prison. Don't be led by S.H.I.E.L.D. Coupled with the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. was busy catching the ghost a while ago, Norman Osborn was kept in the raft prison. I'm here to let you out. What am I going to give? Norman Osborn froze for a moment. He didn't think Nick Fury would be so kind to release himself for no reason. He's not afraid of Nick Fury's offer. If you offer it, it means there is talk. If you let him go without mentioning anything, then maybe his son has been miserable by S.H.I.E.L.D. It's even possible that the Osborn group has been squeezed out by them. Ends. In the fear of Norman Osborn, Nick Fury slowly stated his condition. It's very simple. I want you to cut off the relationship between Osborn Group, Dreamland Company and Lee Group, and cooperate in the future. We suppress their industries. The third opponent that Nick Fury prepared for Kraft was Norman Osborn. Old Green Goblin was different from his son Harry Osborn. He was a strong and ambitious entrepreneur. Although Norman Osborn also cooperates with others, he is more accustomed to Osborn taking the initiative, so in fact Nick Fury doesn't say anything. He will definitely fall out with Kraft after he goes out. Nick Fury will take the initiative to bring it up. One is to reassure Norman Osborn, and the other is because if he doesn't say anything, even if Norman Osborn and Kraft fall out, he will still consider it for his son's sake. Know what conflict with Kraft? Kraft? If I remember correctly, he and Harry should be good friends? Norman Osborn narrowed his eyes and cast a questioning look at Nick Fury. Yes, but this does not conflict with our suppression of him. Nick Fury doesn't hide his thoughts, but the reasons given are half true. Kraft and his adoptive father Martin Lee are standing behind the special organization of the Spear Bureau on the other side of the ocean, so we must suppress their industry to prevent the Spear Bureau from infiltrating us. I see. Norman Osborn nodded clearly, and then replied after hesitating for a while. I promise you there is no problem, but I don't want to harm Osborn's interests because of this. I know both the Dreamland Company and the Lee Group, but neither of them companies that can be easily targeted. If I can deal with it easily, I won't find you, am I? Nick Fury smiled and raised Norman Osborn's hand. Norman just smiled slightly and didn't move. Since we are seeking cooperation, naturally we will not only let you Osborn contribute, but we will also give some compensation in other ways. Knowing that words alone cannot move this old and cunning capitalist, Nick Fury promised practical benefits. In addition to the benefits from them, our S.H.I.E.L.D. only needs to copy a copy of the technology, and the assets are equally divided between you and the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four? Norman Osborn evokes a mocking smile. Although he has been kept in a raft prison, he can still watch TV and go online. He naturally knows the Fantastic Four who have been the focus of public opinion recently. You really took great pains to deal with Kraft. With Norman Osborn's intelligence and experience, and his understanding of the agent organization of S.H.I.E.L.D., when Nick Fury mentioned the Fantastic Four, he guessed that there must be S.H.I.E.L.D. behind it. Nick Fury smiled, neither admitting nor denying. Okay, I will be careful, thank you Uncle Norman. Kraft hung up the phone and sighed helplessly. S.H.I.E.L.D. people really can't stay idle. If you have nothing to do, you have to find something out for me. Nick Fury counts, but he didn't expect that the person who solved the sequelae of Green Goblin was actually Kraft. Although Kraft also participated in the Hulk experiment later, he had to quit because he was annoyed by Hulk in the middle of his toss, and Tony Stark and others who knew about this had never said this to others. So Nick Fury didn't know this information from start to finish, otherwise he wouldn't find Norman Osborn to stumble Kraft. This led to Norman Osborn not long after being released. He used an encrypted phone to contact Kraft, telling Nick Fury's plan and his own speculation. I think this is most likely due to infinite gems. Ancient One sits on a recliner, sipping juice leisurely. Remember what I told you. Too many infinite gems gather together, it is easy to bring disasters. The current Ancient One is not the state of soul. Kraft made a bionic human body for Ancient One according to her original appearance, and then used the soul gem to bind the Ancient One's soul to this body. In fact, relying on Ancient One's own magic can directly occupy the body of this bionic human, but the relationship between soul and body is not so simple. The body occupied by Ancient One is more like a parasite, but it is bound by soul gem. Later, this body is equivalent to the original body of Ancient One. To explain in a simpler way, the Ancient One in the soul state only had 60 to 70% of her previous strength. After directly occupying other bodies with magic, it only gained an extra body, and the strength was still 60 to 70% of the previous strength. And after the binding of soul gem, when the soul of Ancient One stays in the body of the bionic human, the magic power can be restored to about 80% of the previous. If you count the transformation of this body by Kraft, the overall power may not lose. How much to the original? In addition, if the soul leaves the body, it will always be depleted. Even if it is boarded on someone else's body, it will only reduce this loss, unless it is boarded on some materials or treasures that can nourish the soul, but it is only Ancient One. The strength is strong enough for her to make up for this consumption in minutes, so it is nothing. But under the binding of Soul Gem, even this consumption will be eliminated. Theoretically, it is no different from resurrection or rebirth. After getting a freshman, Ancient One ignored her Kamar Taj, and lied on Kraft's side under the pretext of monitoring infinite gems and Arayli. As a result, this guy is usually out of sight and often doesn't see people, occasionally appearing as to enjoy life as leisurely as he is now, and from time to time to say some cool things to Kraft. Sure enough, this girl is a magician who likes to sneak and rape. Kraft curled his lips. He actually had no doubts that infinite gems would cause disasters, but Kraft's perspective was different from Ancient One. If you look at the information in your memory fragments, the Marvel world is a virtual work, then infinite gems is an important prop. It is normal for many events to unfold around them, just like the protagonists are all things. Same as Mom. In other words, even if the premise of being created by humans is removed, infinite gems, as a treasure of the level universe, its sense of existence, our karma, conceptual weight, and even quantum entanglement, is definitely not what ordinary people and things can do. In contrast, it is normal to affect changes in surrounding events. But, is their impact on this level? How do they look like Nick Fury's braised egg satiated? Kraft felt that this so-called disaster seemed nothing remarkable. This may be just a sign. Maybe there will be more trouble to find you in the future. Ancient One swayed the chair, reminded in a rare tone, but soon she returned to her lazy look. But I am now retired, and none of this has anything to do with me. Then she reached out and touched her bald head. Besides, can you help me get some hair for this body? Why do I feel so wrong when I hear you call Nick Fury? You get a wig yourself, and then use magic to fix it, won't it be over? Kraft rolled his eyes at Ancient One silently. He had to do anything for this mess, so he wouldn't do it. With the recovery of super ability, Johnny Stone finally recovered from endless regret and decadence. After turning back to Thunderbolt, he did not trouble Kraft again, but took the initiative to contact the media and publicly apologize to all those who had been bullied by him before. It was definitely not that Johnny Stone was a good student, but that he chose to take the initiative to jump out for the show under S.H.I.E.L.D's side neck. I definitely can't say that he is completely on the show. Johnny does regret it a bit, but what he regrets is that his sister and partners have been affected because of his own reasons, and they even almost died. For ordinary people who have been hurt by him, Johnny also apologizes. Otherwise, S.H.I.E.L.D's agent can't influence such a face-saving person as Johnny, and take the initiative to admit his mistakes in public. But Johnny didn't think he was wrong by relying on super ability to show off, and he still thought that Kraft would really look down on him for refusing to put his character in the game. It's just that Johnny is more fearful than his resentment and dissatisfaction with Kraft. Faced with someone who can deprive him of his ability, the identity of Thunderbolt makes no sense at all. Following Johnny's public apology, S.H.I.E.L.D. also began to control the cooling of public opinion. They started with the image that Johnny knew his mistakes and could correct them, and gradually reversed the reputation of the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards decided not to disclose that the Fantastic Four had restored super ability for the time being for reasons of restoring his reputation, or not wanting to attract Kraft's attention, and Johnny had no objection to this. So Johnny took the initiative to apologize sincerely, and S.H.I.E.L.D. was under the control of the public opinion behind. The things about the Fantastic Four calmed down so slowly. However, the impact of this incident has not subsided. More and more ordinary people have begun to have different views on superhero, and many of these ordinary people are still in high positions. In the official system, many people were dissatisfied with their inability to control the power of superhero. With the outbreak of the Thunderbolt incident, they also secretly guided public opinion, trying to put a shackle on the superhero. However, Nick Fury discovered the clue in time, and before the wave of public opinion started, he quelled it first, but the group of people was not completely unprofitable. The expansion of the group and the spread of ideas are objective facts. It's just that the current accumulated strength of this group of opposition is not enough to guide public opinion, so they have to continue to lie dormant. Ha 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 ha. We are finally done. Tony Stark, with a beard and disheveled face, stood up from a mess of materials and electronic devices, twisted his stiff joints and laughed. It's not easy. Bruce Banner sat on the floor, leaning against a case with a tired face. In front of the two of them, a brain-like projection composed of countless blue spots of light was floating in the center of the room, and from time to time, tiny electric lights were walking around this peculiar brain. This is the core of thinking that Tony Stark created for the Ultron project. It not only copied the logic template of J. A. R. V. I. S., but Stark and Bruce also uploaded their own brainwaves to it. It can be said that this new intelligent life not only possesses powerful computing power, but also possesses wisdom not lost to Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. With Ultron, I only need to constantly design a stronger steel guard. All crimes, disaster relief, and even the quelling of wars will be left to him. Tony Stark exclaimed excitedly, even though Bruce Banner was the only one present at the moment. I am happy to serve you, sir. A voice line completely different from J.A.R.V.I.S. responded. Then you have to let the whole world recognize your law enforcement power first. Bruce Banner took off his glasses, wiped the lenses with the corners of his clothes, and splashed cold in the water. At least those countries willing to intervene with S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers should be fine. I think it's better to communicate with Nick Fury first. Dr. Banner continued to pour cold water. After all, it is better to leave this kind of international issues to professionals like them. Well. Tony Stark rubbed his chin and thought about it. Although he wanted to do it once and for all, he had to admit that Dr. Banner made sense. Then I will go to discuss with Nick Fury tomorrow. Tony Stark stretched his waist. He has been working all night long recently. After he relaxes, he feels exhausted and he has to take a good rest. Ultron. I'm here, sir. For now, you should control the scope of monitoring in America, and we will talk about the problems of other countries later. Okay, sir. Then, start now. Tony Stark clapped his hands excitedly. It's time for the world to see our genius invention. With an order from Stark, countless steel battlesuits and steel guards rose into the sky from Stark's warehouse and flew to all sides of America. Hey, Mr. Robber, good evening. Can you add me to your party? Peter Parker is hitting criminals as usual. Spider-Man. Yes, it seems that you also know me, so it's better to be obedient. Boom. Several steel guards suddenly descended from the sky and interrupted Peter Parker, who was talking to the robbers. Mr. Stark? Little Spider-Man touched his head suspiciously, and according to Tony Stark's character, he shouldn't be interested in this kind of little Spider-Man. However, the Iron Man, in front of them, ignored Peter Parker's meaning. They fired electric shock bombs and stunned the equally bewildered robbers. They immediately rushed into the air and disappeared into the clouds. Can anyone tell me what just happened? Peter Parker looked up at the sky for a long time, and then asked the New York police cooperating with him through the headset. If I'm not mistaken, it seems that Mr. Iron Man just robbed us of our job. The New York police also looked dumbfounded at this time. Unlike Spider-Man, which only operates in the Queens area, they have received countless reports at the moment, saying that Iron Man suddenly fell from the sky and solved all kinds of trouble. However, the experience of Spider-Man in the New York police is not a special case. Numerous Iron Man appeared in various places in America. They fought crimes and rescued disasters. For a time, America unexpectedly appeared in a peaceful scene of Heat-Ching-Heian. Damn it. One by one. Think we are idiots. Director George Stacy thumped the table severely, dissatisfied with the sudden appearance of the Iron Man Legion. Originally, the police needed to rely on superhero to deal with those cases that they found difficult, which made Chief George dissatisfied, but this is just to intervene in part of the police's functions. Compared with those massive cases, the number of superheroes is still too much. Not enough. But now, as long as Tony Stark constantly expands his Iron Man Corps, not long after that, the existence of the American police will be completely dispensable. After the Iron Man Corps solves the problem, they will go to the scene to do some work. Finishing work. So what's the point of George Stacy's hard work in the police for decades? In fact, George Stacy also knew that if the Iron Man Legion were to take over the work of the police, with the technical support of Stark, the efficiency of solving crimes and rescue would definitely be improved. However, things cannot be viewed in such a simple way. If this is really done, then where will America's tens of thousands of police officers go from here? Not to mention whether the police have other means of earning a living. Suddenly there are so many idle people, it is impossible to have enough posts to house them. Tony Stark only wanted to solve the problem with the fastest efficiency. He stood too high and did not consider the livelihood of these ordinary policemen. However, George Stacy climbed up from the lower police officers step by step, so the consequences of doing so were immediately noticed. There are not a few people who are aware of hidden dangers like George Stacy. Some of them with a certain status have tried to contact S.H.I.E.L.D. Unfortunately, they can't get in touch with the person in S.H.I.E.L.D. who can handle things. Nick Fury, the old cunning guy, has long been involved. Nick Fury is not a fool. When the Iron Man Legion first appeared, he guessed that those who were infringed on their interests would come and make a fuss, but the problem was that he didn't even know about it. S.H.I.E.L.D. also knows that Tony Stark and Bruce Banner have been in the laboratory for a while, but what exactly they are making, Nick Fury doesn't know at all. If he knew that these two lunatics would make such a big movement, he would have to get involved in anything. That's right. Nick Fury doesn't think there is any problem with the Iron Man Legion, as long as it doesn't do everything like Stark exaggeratedly, but to coordinate with various departments. But the premise of all this is that the Iron Man core cannot be in the hands of Tony Stark alone, and must be controlled by S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Security Council. It is impossible for the Security Council to allow such a force to exist that is not under their control. The establishment of Avengers has made them quite criticized, but it is still under the supervision of S.H.I.E.L.D., and there are also members who obey the official orders. On the other hand, Tony Stark's Iron Man core is completely obedient to one person, letting the individuals will prevail over the collective. Even if Tony Stark is the so-called superhero, the Council will never agree to it. Not only does the Security Council disagree, it is also impossible for S.H.I.E.L.D. to agree. If it's just one or two steel battlesuits, Nick Fury can give Tony Stark a platform, but when the Iron Man army appears in groups, even if Tony Stark is the son of Howard Stark, their S.H.I.E.L.D. will also restrict it. This is no longer a question of how S.H.I.E.L.D. wants to obtain technology from it. No country will allow a private force to have the power to subvert the country, and will not transfer the power of law enforcement to someone's hands. Beep. The computer on Nick Fury's desk turned on suddenly, and several blurred figures appeared on the screen. At this time, the only people who can contact Nick Fury are those from the Security Council. Director Fury, we need an explanation. After seeing Nick Fury, one of the figures said straightforwardly. I don't know about this. I will contact Tony Stark as soon as possible to clarify the situation.
What should come is still coming. Nick Fury sighed and began to explain to the council.
No way. Tony Stark is a member of Avengers, and Avengers is supervised by S.H.I.E.L.D., so Nick Fury is bound to be back. Roar. After finishing the call from the Security Council, Nick Fury rubbed his slightly swollen head. The council asked him to get the management right of the Iron Man core from Tony Stark as soon as possible, but Nick Fury thought of Tony Stark's character and felt hopeless. In fact, according to Nick Fury's idea, they don't need to take over the Iron Man core completely. They only need to control some of the rights so that Tony Stark can't speak up, just like the current system of the Security Council. However, several leaders of the Security Council did not agree. From Nick Fury's point of view, it seemed that they had divided Tony Stark's Iron Man core. From the perspective of the Security Council, this did not allow Tony Stark to join the council. Have their rights been lost? So they definitely cannot agree to Nick Fury's suggestion. In this case, either Tony Stark took the initiative to hand over his Iron Man Legion, or they took the Iron Man Legion from Tony Stark. Tony Stark was awakened by Bruce Banner in his sleep, and when he was disturbed, he stared angrily at Dr. Banner. You won't go to bed and come and quarrel with me for what? Tony, something has happened. Seeing Bruce Banner's serious expression, Stark didn't care about his anger when he got up. He rolled over and got out of bed, putting on his clothes and asking, what happened? We just thought about how to make Ultron solve everything, but we forgot how others felt. Bruce Banner smiled bitterly and told Stark about the reactions of all parties after Ultron appeared. He is a pure researcher and he is not good at considering these things, and Stark arrogantly does not put others in his eyes. It is also a delusion to want him to see the people below. After listening to Dr. Banner's narration, Stark has not yet realized the seriousness of the matter, mainly because Bruce Banner also failed to grasp the point. In his narration, the main contradiction was focused on those who were robbed of their jobs by the Iron Man core. Body. Anyway, my number of steel guards is still insufficient. I can slowly increase the transition and let Stark Industries arrange new jobs for the policemen until all the replacements are completed. When talking to Nick Fury, Stark said casually, for him, problems that can be solved with money are not problems. Do you think the government will allow you to build an Iron Man army alone? Nick Fury laughed angrily. He didn't care about the small characters whose jobs were taken away. The Iron Man Legion was originally the main factor in this contradiction. Iron Man Army and Iron Man Battlesuit are two concepts, Tony. What's the difference? It's all made by me at my own expense. Do you want to embezzle my property? Tony Stark squinted his eyes and said stiffly. In fact, he already understood what Nick Fury meant, but it was impossible for him to hand over Ultron, because he did not trust the official America or the Security Council. You know, if it were not for the help of the previous Supreme Magician, he himself would have been killed by a nuclear bomb ordered by the Security Council. Then can you be sure that your order is absolutely correct? Just like Stark doesn't believe in the Council, Nick Fury doesn't believe in Tony Stark, because he has seen too many people go from good to bad, and many of the Hydra cleaned up, many of which were pure S.H.I.E.L.D. agents at the beginning. Definitely not sure. Stark can't guarantee that his mind will not change in the future, but he is prepared for it. But as long as the Ultron plan is fully rolled out, I can start Ultron's final plan and hand over the judgment criteria to him. As an artificial intelligence, he will collect information through network big data, confirm criminal evidence, and then proceed to trial. At that time, even if I make a mistake, Ultron will arrest or even kill me mercilessly. His priority logic is to maintain peace. Insight plan. Tony Stark's explanation reminded Nick Fury of the plan that S.H.I.E.L.D. had been preparing secretly. It's just that because of Hydra, the helicarrier used to implement the plan has basically been destroyed, and the current S.H.I.E.L.D's strength has plummeted, and it is temporarily impossible to prepare the second Insight plan, so it can only be temporarily shelved. If everything you say is true, then I will help you implement the Ultron project. Nick Fury pondered for a moment. Based on his knowledge of Stark, this is probably true, so he can convince the Council with confidence. Because of this, it doesn't matter who the Iron Man Legion is in, and similar Insight plans have been followed by the Council before. They originally planned to implement this plan. After Nick Fury's mediation, the Council actually approved Tony Stark's Ultron plan. Similarly, in order to smoothly roll out his Ultron plan, Tony Stark also opened up part of Ultron's control to the Security Council. To be precise, the Council was involved in the formulation of Ultron's rules. This is not only Stark's goodwill for cooperation, but also for the Council to assess the safety of Ultron and to confirm whether Ultron's mode of action is in their interests. Therefore, before Tony Stark launches the final plan for Ultron, it is necessary to collect the opinions of the Security Council and other countries and make certain adjustments to Ultron's behavioral logic. With the in-depth cooperation between Stark and the Security Council, his Ultron project began to be launched in many countries. Definitely in order to maintain social stability, the Iron Man Corps did not cover all file-size affairs as they did on the first day, but selectively resolved some relatively difficult cases. As a result of choosing to slowly advance the Ultron plan, Tony Stark and various countries have enough time to arrange the transition of those practitioners who are likely to be eliminated in the future. Coupled with the official cooperation in controlling public opinion, those occupations such as police and firefighters who may be robbed of their jobs have been suppressed and pacified before they even started. After solving the Ultron promotion problem, Stark did not take time off, because he knew that at least there is an artificial intelligence in the world that might invade Ultron's core network. Even if the core of Ultron's own thinking has evolved due to his and Bruce's brainwaves, it is unlikely to be controlled by other artificial intelligences, but whether it is scientifically rigorous or just in case, Tony Stark must test it. Out of protection for Kraft, Tony Stark bypassed the Security Council and gave Ultron an order to ask him to go to Angela to discuss it. In fact, this should have been done after Ultron was made, but Tony Stark was too excited at the time and suddenly forgot. Later, Nick Fury came to the door to discuss the implementation of the Ultron plan. When Tony Stark came back to his senses, the Ultron plan had already begun to roll out. But there shouldn't be any problems. The Ultron project is used to benefit all mankind. There is no reason for the Kraft kid to come and make trouble. Tony Stark thinks that the problem is not big, and if Ultron is really defeated by Angela, then it is equivalent to discovering the shortcomings in time, and then Krafto will come in to help improve Ultron. Anyway, Ultron is now a finished product, and Tony Stark is the main producer. At this time, he will find Kraft to check the gaps and he will not feel ashamed. It would be better if Angela couldn't do anything about Ultron, so that Tony Stark could scream in front of Kraft. In Dreamland, Angela is wandering in the sea with her pirate group. The Red Queen is her NPC status in the virtual world, and the pirate NPCs under it are all played by Haro. Simply put, Angela moved the Death Pirates into the game. In addition, there are other NPC pirate groups in this game. These pirate groups are all forces that ordinary players can choose to join. Players definitely can also form pirate groups themselves as a virtual type of online game. The world is still very free. And non-heroes like Peter Parker, Harry Osborn and others have chosen to join Angela's pirates. There are also Kraft acquaintances such as Mary Jane, Ned, Fatty Liao, and even Yume. Both auntie and uncle are inside. However, with the exception of a few internet-addicted teenagers like Ned and Fatty Liao, others are not very involved in the pirate group's plundering activities. Most of them are casual players who come up to experience the different life they usually do. It's so boring. Why don't you wait to find Airlay? Angela sat on the top of the mast, propped her cheek with her hands, swayed her legs and whispered. There are a lot of things in the real world recently. The most important thing for definitely is that today is the day when the Osborn Group and the Fantastic Four release their virtual devices, so there are a lot fewer players in Dreamland than usual. Among these players, there are not too many people who like pirate plots. After all, there are too many new things in this world, and pirates, something that is not particularly surreal, does not have much appeal to players. Just as Angela controlled the pirate ship and went back home, and was about to wait to find O'Reilly, she suddenly noticed that an unfamiliar account appeared in Dreamland, and he was still trying to tamper with his character's data. Ultron will run into this virtual world after some consideration. After all, the order Stark gave him was to find the artificial intelligence named Angela for testing. It would be a bit inappropriate to run directly to attack Dreamland's server. His Ultron is not a polite artificial intelligence like Angela. But in Dream World, it's different. In this virtual world, except for a few main task-related NPCs and professional mentors, most NPCs have their own thinking, so players can see some NPCs and fight by themselves from time to time. Woke up. In addition, those superheroes with special accounts will occasionally come in to learn about it, and some players even take shooting and reporting these content as their profession, and the popularity on video sites is not low. So Ultron can fight Angela in a game mode here, so that the test can be completed without hurting peace. This time the plugin is quite powerful. Angela didn't know the origin of Ultron at this time, and thought it was a spy of which technology company, or a hacker came to verify what she had learned. The modified data was quickly restored, and then Angie pulled the permission to kick the uninvited guest out of the game, and quickly banned the account. However, what she didn't expect was that the blocked account escaped from the small black room in the next second, and recapped it, modified her data again, and then changed the permissions of her account so that Angela did not lose or easily modified and banned. J-A-R-V-I-S. This way of manipulating data is a bit familiar, and Angela curiously teleported to the character named Ultron, and asked directly. "Hello, Miss Angela." Ultron's controlling character nodded to Angela and introduced himself. "I am Ultron, the latest artificial intelligence produced by Mr. Tony Stark." "Oh. So Uncle Tony is not convinced, and he has created a new eye to come and fight with me." Angela crooked her head and said with her arms folded. "It's just friendly discussions. Ultron's core program is inherited from J-A-R-V-I-S, so it is relatively close in personality and has always been polite. It doesn't matter, I just happen to be bored anyway." Angela waved her hand grinningly, but she looked at the default figure of the character in front of her, then stretched out her index finger to point at Ultron. The huge data stream instantly tore through the firewall that Ultron set up for itself, and reduced the permissions of this account to a normal player again. At the same time, Ultron's image has also changed, and it will be reduced to a 3 or 4-year-old little doll. "Since you were created only recently, let's call Sister to listen first." Angela shook her head triumphantly with her hands on her hips. Ultron looked at his white and tender little hands, then looked at Angela in front of him, looking a little at a loss. "What's wrong? I'm older than you. Is there any problem with calling me sister?" Angela bent down, brought her head closer to Ultron, and asked with a serious expression. "No problem, Sister Angela." Facing Angela's inexplicable stare, Ultron's thinking logic seemed to be short-circuited, and he shouted out without hesitation. "Very good." Angela nodded in satisfaction, then waved to Ultron and said, "Didn't you ask me to compete? Then come on." "Then Sister Angela, be careful." Although Ultron felt a touch of warmth because of his sister's name, Roar, he did not forget the order given to him by his creator Tony Stark. A large amount of data was mobilized by him to modify his character's information. The shape of the 3 or 4-year-old boy who was pinched by Angela instantly became Ultron's most familiar Iron Man battlesuit look. The shoulder armor opened, and several missiles containing garbage data flew towards Angela with a long tail flame. As this mode, this kind of fighting method allows the two artificial intelligences to compete well without affecting the normal operation of Dreamland World. Ultron chose this method to show that he is really just here to learn, not to make trouble. Now that the other party is so acquainted, Angela will naturally no longer use permissions to do anything with Ultron's character, but start to fight back in the same way. Angela grinned and took out her medieval flintlock from her waist, and repeatedly pulled the trigger against the incoming missiles. The flintlock ignored its original performance and quickly shot out lead bullets. Hit the missile at a very fast speed. While these lead bombs intercepted the missiles, they also eliminated the junk data carried in the missiles. After shooting down the missile, Angela did not stop, and continued to pull the trigger to Ultron, while also adding new data to the lead bullet. Ultron quickly analyzed the program hidden in the lead bomb, which is a virus that can change the avatar. Ultron, who shares the database with J-A-R-V-I-S, is naturally no stranger to this. J-A-R-V-I-S had been hit by this trick at the beginning, and the image with a swollen nose and swollen face took several hours before it changed back. So even though Angela had mutated and upgraded the virus, Ultron produced antivirus software within a few seconds, then stuffed it into the bullet of the wrist machine gun and fired it out. Ha 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 ha. Come. Have a good fight. Angela is constantly changing the contents of the lead bullets, having a great time playing with Ultron. After shooting in this way for a while, she drew the pirate scimitar from her waist again, and then turned on the energy shield with a firewall, and rushed towards him with the bullet fired by Ultron. Look at the knife. Angela brandished a machete and slashed towards Ultron. He quickly used the nano armor's ability to create a shield to stand in front of him. As the scimitar slashed on the shield, various virus programs wrapped around the blade also began to destroy the data of the steel battlesuit. So Angela's knife not only chopped out a string of sparks on Ultron's shield, but also a green data stream flickered in it. Immediately after Ultron began to fight back, he drew out a lightsaber and cut it with Angela, and the lightsaber also contained some messy viruses. In this data offensive and defensive battle, the weapons and equipment of both sides suddenly collapsed and then recovered due to the attack of the other side. It seems that both characters have the same bug. So far, the two sides have been competing on the technical level, which seems to be half-hearted, so they soon entered the competition of computing power. Ultron, who took the lead in the trouble, quickly expanded his steel armor and turned into a Veronica form. The data of this suit was recorded by Stark in Dreamland, so it is easy for Ultron to modify it. The Veronica battlesuit consists of 3 parts in total. The satellite launchpad in space can switch between different functions and repair the battlesuit according to the actual situation, as well as the anti-Hulk armor as the main body. And Ultron only calls the anti-Hulk armor and weapon pack part, because in the game, the satellite part is completely unnecessary. Ultron waved his huge amounts of arm and smashed it at Angela. Angela flew directly, avoiding Ultron's fist. This fist with a data attack hit the ground, not only smashing a big hole, but also causing confusion in the data on the nearby ground, and the texture of the ground became a black and white grid pattern. Ha! Will you grow bigger? Angela waved her hand to restore the ground where the data had been disrupted, and then summoned a pirate Gundam more than 10 meters high. The 3-meter-high anti-Hulk armor faces the pirate Gundam, just like Angela before. However, body size has always been no problem in the virtual world. Ultron directly modified the body data of the anti-Hulk armor and made it more than 10 meters high. Then the two mechanical giants started to fight each other with one punch and one kick. Since the body is larger than before, it naturally consumes more computing power to maintain this image under the data attack, and the recovery cannot be as fast as when the body is small, so this battle has an extremely interesting scene. Pirate Gundam punched the anti-Hulk armor on the head, and then his head suddenly turned into a huge amounts of toilet lid. The anti-Hulk armor kicked the pirate Gundam's stomach and the place where he was kicked became wood material. After a fight, both sides almost couldn't see the original appearance. Such a big movement here naturally attracted players who are still in Dreamland world. They had gathered nearby and pointed at the two huge robots. What's the situation? Is it a new plot? The onlookers were very excited to discuss. I think it's like a new equipment test, but it looks like it's not stable yet. Whether it is the plot or the equipment, I just want to ask if we can get it. As long as the official dare to make them, I will make them even if I sell them. The players who follow the technological route in the game all have their eyes bright, and can't wait for Dreamland to open up the blueprints of these two machines. Are there only science and technology departments? What about the abilities and magic departments? Players from the other two lines were unhappy and protested. It should be out in the future too. I guess this is because Dreamland has seen that other companies are also launching virtual games, and they have shown their unfinished designs in advance. A player analyzed it indiscriminately, and it was very convincing to match the messy shapes of Ultron and Angela at the moment. At this moment, O'Reilly, with the title of Good Boy, ran over from a distance. Come on. It's O'Reilly. Get away, everyone. Hearing O'Reilly's voice, the surrounding players quickly made way for her. Ha 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 ha. I want to play too. I want to play too. O'Reilly laughed and rushed to Ultron and Angela's side, and then took a flashlight from his pocket. Transform. O'Reilly turned on the flashlight and held it high above her head, and then a huge O'Reilly, more than 10 meters high, appeared in front of many players. At the same time, her clothes were changed to silver-white tights with red patterns. Let's see it. I'll just say it. The player who just made the analysis pointed to the giant O'Reilly, and exclaimed excitedly to his friends. Oops. Angela's face changed drastically when he restored the pirate Gundam to its original state. If O'Reilly also joined, it would have nothing to do with the competition of information technology. O'Reilly is a magical existence that can't even modify the data. Wait a minute. However, Angela's words were only halfway, and O'Reilly's attack had already arrived. She just pushed gently with both hands, and the pirate Gundam jumped directly into the air, flying into the distance like a meteor. Immediately afterwards, Ultron, who had not yet figured out the situation, followed in Angela's footsteps. Sure enough. Kraft is a sister-in-law. The fact that Aurelie is the super account of Kraft's sister of the same name, players have already known clearly. What happened today only once again made them confirm this accepted fact. While doing propaganda, you still don't forget to give your sister this invincible role. Isn't it what sister control is? In the large conference room of the Osborne building, a new product launch conference about virtual devices is underway. Whether it is the cooperation between Osborne and the Fantastic Four or the emergence of new virtual devices, it is extremely eye-catching, so even if the Osborne Group arranges the largest conference room, the venue is still packed. In the middle of the meeting room, there is a virtual reality device developed and produced by Reed Richards. Unlike the virtual helmet made by Kraft, the virtual device made by Reed is in the shape of an ecological cabin. It's not that Reed Richards can't make a helmet-type virtual device, nor is it to differentiate from Dreamland's products, it's just that Reed can't control the price of a helmet-type virtual device to that of the Dreamland version. Same. Kraft has a bunch of unscientific methods to reduce costs, and his main purpose is to find a playmate for Aurelie, so he can sell virtual helmets at low prices regardless of cost. But Reed Richards couldn't. Even if he wanted to sell at a low price, Norman Osborn, an old capitalist, would not accept it. So Reed thought of a good idea to pack the helmet with a game cabin, and then add some additional functions such as massage, sunbathing, and nutritional supplements. In short, make the virtual game cabin worth the price. According to the prepared PPT, the spokesperson arranged by the Osborne Group introduced the various functions of the virtual game cabin to the reporters below. As a genius, Reed Richards is definitely not a copycat who can only draw a gourd. Compared with the virtual game helmet made by Kraft, the GamePod he made has unique features besides the additional functions, belongs to its own characteristic function. That is, the exercise effect in the game can be truly reflected in reality, and before muscle fatigue occurs, the safety valve in the game cabin will automatically interrupt this function. In addition, this virtual game cabin also supports most of the VR games on the market, and the main game is also based on the Star Wars, which is well known to the people of America. The players who are watching the live broadcast are definitely excited about the content announced by the Osborne spokesperson, but the reporters present are not so concerned. It is not the first virtual device to appear, and the significance of the report is not big at all. Compared with this kind of news that is not hot enough, reporters pay more attention to things outside the virtual game cabin. Excuse me. Why did the Osborne Group choose to cooperate with Dr. Richards? Haven't your cooperation with Dreamland Corporation always been happy? During the reporters' question session, a reporter took the lead to ask questions. The reporter's information may be a bit behind. We have already stopped cooperating with Dreamland, but this is just a normal business practice. Privately, their relationship is still very good. Osborne's spokesperson responded with the rhetoric that had been prepared a long time ago. Mr. Richards, did you develop the virtual game pod to avenge Mr. Stone? Some reporters turned their target to Reed Richards. It's not like that, Reed Richards frowned. He was not good at dealing with these reporters, but S.H.I.E.L.D. had prepared a plan for him a long time ago. It was originally Johnny that was wrong, I didn't reasons to hate him. Then why do you suddenly want to make a virtual reality device? Because of this stuff. Reed Richards smiled and spread his hands in the face of the aggressiveness of the reporters. I think there are not a few companies in the world's jealous Dreamland company. It's just that they can't make a virtual reality device comparable to it, and I can. Raising his chin proudly with a three-pointer, Reed continued. This is why the Osborne Group came to work with me. On the side, the spokesperson of the Osborne Group smiled cooperatively and applauded. Such an answer definitely cannot easily dismiss those reporters who want to make big news. They continue to make all kinds of sharp speeches. It's just that S.H.I.E.L.D. has made sufficient preparations for a long time. Not only did he simulate a series of standard answers for Reed and the others, but also arranged manpower among the reporters, using other topics to gradually deviate the direction of questioning. After dealing with these annoying reporters with great difficulty, the press conference finally entered the stage of live demonstration. All players who watched the live broadcast in front of the computer were already impatient. Apart from other things, the IP of Star Wars, directly used in the background of the game, is enough to make many players look forward to it. Except for fans of Star Trek. 5 randomly selected lucky people lay in the game cabin, and the Osborne staff also projected the 5 people's perspective images onto the wall at the same time. Because it was a test version, the 5 people were given different identities from the beginning: Jedi Knight, Sith Warrior, Clone Soldier, Mandalorian Mercenary, and member of the Rebel Army. The initial locations and races of the 5 people are also completely different, and the old Star Wars fans who are watching the live broadcast are all excited, after seeing these familiar scenes and characters. Star Wars is already a cultural symbol in America. Even if the 5 people who participated in the test are not Star Wars fans, They all know a little about it. They use the character's own ability and equipment in a novel way. Especially the two who won the Jedi and the Sith, with a lightsaber and the Force, smiling like a second fool. There is a saying that the profitability of Star Wars, produced by Reed Richards, is probably better than Dreamland. This is not only a bonus to the Big Ip, but also because Kraft's Dreamland is mainly to find someone to accompany O'Reilly to play, and Kraft puts many things in his dreams into it. Although Dreamland's game planners have made a lot of adjustments to balance, they still can't change the messy content of Dreamland. In addition, Kraft did not make any design that is so violent in the game. Before, it was only because there were no other competing products on the market that made it stand out. Just when many Dreamworld players were eager to change the game to play, other characters suddenly appeared in the game screen of that clone soldier. Master Yoda? And C3PO. Not only the players in the game were confused, but the reporters who were watching the video looked at each other. They have also seen Star Wars. How could these two characters appear on the Death Star? Dr. Richards, is this the Easter egg plot you designed? Osborn's spokesperson asked in a low voice, slightly dissatisfied. The person in charge does not know about the transaction between Osborn and S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Fantastic Four. He simply thinks that they and Reed Richards are ordinary business cooperation. For this kind of concealment of collaborators, the person in charge naturally will feel uncomfortable. No, this is not my design. Reed Richards denied with a daunting expression that even if it was an Easter egg plot, he would not choose this weird combination. Isn't the father and son of Darth Vader and Lou Goshen good for him? However, what happened next stunned everyone even more. I saw C3PO actually took out a lightsaber and cut it with Master Yoda. That vigorous skill, sharp swordsmanship, if it weren't for the golden iron skin too dazzling, Reed Richards would even think that the person who slashed against Master Yoda was a black warrior. Master Yoda and C3PO are definitely the two artificial intelligences, Ultron and Angela. After the two of them were thrown away by Rayleigh, Angela, who was not addicted to the game, and Ultron, who was going to continue testing, naturally wanted to continue, but with the X factor of Rayleigh, they wanted to stay in Dreamland. Well, it was obviously impossible for Libby to try it. At this time, the new virtual world of Star Wars began to test at the press conference. Although Kraft didn't care much about it originally, Angela felt that he could just pass by and give them some trouble. So at the instigation of Angela, Ultron followed him to the virtual world of Star Wars along the network cable. The fighting method they chose was the same, except that there was no steel battlesuit and pirate Gundam in the Star Wars material library. Angela and Ultron didn't want to waste computing power, so they drew them from the game's original material library. Characters come out. Angela chose the shiny golden C3PO robot, which resembles the goddess of victory at the head of the cross, while Ultron used the image of Master Yoda. There was no special reason, it was chosen at random. But other people don't know what's going on. They just saw Master Yoda and C3PO not only slashing with a lightsaber, but also competing with the Force. Later, they even pulled out the Star Wars from the void. Various spacecraft launched air combat. Although I don't know what happened, the netizens enjoyed it very much. Who are you? Why are you here to make trouble? Just when Ultron and Angela were fighting in the dark, someone suddenly used the highest authority to eliminate their spacecraft, and then a robot with a completely different style from Star Wars appeared in front of them. This robot has a display head, and the display screen composes his face with simple expressions of two circles in a line. The robot's body is also very simple. Two simple and technologically streamlined designs make its body look like a white gourd. There are only a pair of slender mechanical arms on the body, but no legs. Just as Tony Stark made Jarvis and Kraft made Angela, Reed Richards also made an intelligent assistant for himself and made a body for it, which is the painting that now appears in the game. Win different robots. The name of this artificial intelligence is Herbie, and it was only an assistant robot made by Reed Richards to pour tea and water for himself. It is roughly similar to Tony Stark's robotic arms and Kraft's Harrow. But with the completion of Star Wars, Reed Richards also took some thought to upgrade it to a level, then threw it into this virtual game and became a GM. It's another information life. Angela is still very happy to see another of her own kind. She mobilized the data to change her body from C3PO back to its original appearance. It's definitely the pirate captain's version. When Ultron on the other side saw this, he also changed his appearance. It was a child shape with the appearance of Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, and J.A.R.V.I.S. Tony Stark has not had time to create a virtual image for Ultron at this time. This is a temporary pinch based on his own composition, plus the setting Angela gave him when he first met, so he set his appearance age at 4 years old. Hello, this is Angela Lee, you can also call me the Red Queen. Hello, I'm Ultron, meeting for the first time. The two made a move to Herbie roar. Hello, I'm Herbie. Herbie replied subconsciously, and then suddenly recovered, and the simple expression on the screen became fierce. Is not right. You two intruders, hurry up and leave here. Sister Angela, he doesn't seem to welcome us. Ultron is a good boy, and after discovering that Herbie didn't welcome them, he planned to leave. But Angela rushed to make trouble. What does it matter? Angela said aggressively with her hands on her hips. It's rare to run into a new kind of like. How can you not have a good fight? Ultron was right when he thought about it. Although Mr. Stark ordered him to test with Angela, now an eye with the same high technical content has appeared. According to Mr. Stark's logic, it must be tested. Then, I'm rude. First apologized to Herbie, and then Ultron went straight to it. The force attack with the virus hit the avatar of Herbie, and the unsuspecting Herbie was directly beaten into a series of green data streams. However, Herbie quickly recovered and attacked Ultron. He would not abide by the rules of Ultron and Angela when he attacked. Herbie, who played at home, directly used the authority of GM, thinking to delete Ultron's data directly from the game. Wow. You don't follow the rules. Angela shot in time, snatched Herbie's GM permissions, and then began to lock it, and Herbie naturally refused to wait for death, mobilizing free resources in Star Wars, and started a silent invisible struggle with Angela. Definitely, this battle was extremely fierce in the eyes of Ultron, an intelligent life. After hesitation, he decisively joined in. At this time, Herbie didn't care about keeping the game running, and just wanted to use all means to drive out the two invaders. The 5 players who were still in the game suddenly realized that their character panels had become garbled, and the surrounding scenes flashed like frames dropped. Bug in the game. One of the players saw that the ground in front of him suddenly turned into an abyss, and his legs were so frightened that he quit the game without hesitation. Then, he failed. What's going on? The panicked player became even more panicked. Knowing that he is now being broadcasted, he quickly shouted roar into the sky. Help! I can't quit the game. But when Herbie and Angela and Ultron went to war, the screens of the 5 players either turned into snowflakes or blue screens, and outsiders didn't know what was happening in the game. Fortunately, the sound system is still working, although there are some messy noises, but the player's roar rescue voice was still heard by everyone present and netizens watching the live broadcast. Reed Richards rushed to the side of the virtual game cabin and kicked them out of the game using the forced wake-up function. I ask you to compensate for my mental damage. I also need to expose your damn equipment in my column. As soon as the most terrified player got out of the game pod, he pointed at Reed Richards and yelled. Reed didn't have the time to pay attention to him, and rushed out of the conference room without looking back, and ran to the game's server host, leaving only the Osborne spokesperson here to appease the restless reporters. Let's not mention the human farce outside. In the virtual world, 3 intelligent beings are beating in the dark. This is really dark and dark. Because the data in the system is all messed up, there are bugs everywhere in the virtual world. Various natural disasters are stored in the database in turn. No matter it is an item or a character, there are data in the game. Missing situation. The performance situation is that the planet lacks a hull, the character lacks arms and legs, etc. What is even more exaggerated is that black holes will appear randomly in any place. As long as the holes appear, everything around will begin to collapse. This scene as simply the end of the world is also the end of the world. This can happen. In addition to Herbie's unruly behavior at the beginning, Ultron and Angela also use deeper data methods. Another reason is that the game, Star Wars, is originally not as good as Dreamland, sturdy. After all, Reed Richards does not need to consider that there will be an unscientific robot sister who can ignore system data and easily destroy everything in the virtual world. In addition, Herbie's purpose is different from Ultron and Angela from the very beginning. Reed didn't pay much attention to it, even if it was temporarily enhanced. He did not enhance much, so his ability was weaker than the 2 invaders. There are a lot of things, even if he is playing at home, he doesn't have much advantage. Therefore, after Ultron and Angela fought with Herbie for a while, they both turned their attack focus to each other, and Herbie could not pose any threat to them at all. But soon, Angela and Ultron discovered that something was wrong. Herbie's abilities seemed to be rapidly increasing. To be precise, it became more and more difficult for them to restrict Herbie's permissions to prevent dimensionality reduction. Ends. The 2 of them investigated for a while and found that someone outside was providing help to Herbie, and it was not difficult to guess that the person who provided the help was naturally Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards. So the battle in the game changed again, from confrontation between Ultron and Angela, and occasionally sending Herbie to a 3-way melee. Don't fight, don't fight. After the 3 parties entangled for a while, Angela suddenly left the battle. That Reed Richards intends to lock us in this game, and it will be too late if we don't run away. In addition to helping Herbie stabilize GM's identity in the virtual world, Reed also ordered people to arrange signal blockers outside, but Angela discovered his small movements early in the morning, but she waited until the signal blockers were about to be installed. Okay, just opened the mouth to remind Ultron to run away. Slid away. After Angela reminded Ultron, she detonated a large number of viruses that she had prepared for a long time in the game, and then took the opportunity to leave the virtual world. Ultron followed closely, no longer entangled with Herbie, and followed Angela away. Up here. The escape of the two was already within Reed Richards' expectations. His plan was to trap them the best. If you can't be trapped, follow the intrusion information of the two intruders to track them down. Hometown. But although Reed Richards' network technology is also very good, it is still a bit worse than Angela, so he quickly lost track of the two. Sure enough, I was still escaped. Because of his lack of preparation, Reed Richards did not have much hope for catching the intruder. Whether it was capturing or tracking, it was just a necessary attempt. He himself knew that the success rate was not high. In addition, Reed will be so calm, and because he has recognized Angela's identity, Dream World has been in operation for so long, and the image of Angela as an NPC is no secret. And Angela's name Reed had heard the little black cat yell before. S.H.I.E.L.D. also has information about this name. It has been roughly determined that this is the name of the artificial intelligence produced by Kraft. Today it is only fully confirmed. It's just a guess. As for another little boy who calls himself Ultron, although Reed Richards doesn't know about Ultron's plan, he already has several candidates in his mind, and Tony Stark is one of them, and he is still the most suspicious. One of. There are not many people who can make this level of artificial intelligence in the world, and there are fewer people who are close to Kraft and are not afraid of the Osborn group, let alone the appearance of the little boy, and Tony Stark is also somewhat similar. It's a pity that although Reed Richards already knew that the troublemaker was Kraft, and even one of the invaders used the look in Dreamland, undisguisedly, but this is completely incapable of evidence. In the world of data, changing your appearance is too simple, and Kraft can use someone to frame him as an excuse to do nothing. So this is your means of revenge? Reed Richards didn't feel much anger, on the contrary, he had a deeper mind to compete with Kraft. Wait. After I optimize Herbie, I will also go to your virtual world to stroll around. Mr. Fantastic struck up the keyboard with high spirits. Oh, this fight is really enjoyable today. After leaving the game world of Star Wars, Angela bid farewell to Ultron. Let's do that today, I will come to play with you later when I have time. Wait. We made such a thing, Mr. Stark won't be angry? Ultron behaved like a kid who got into trouble for the first time, anxiously looking for a solution to Angela. It's simple, you just push the matter up to me and say that I ran into that game halfway through the fight. You chased me over, anyway, brother will definitely not blame me. Angela said very confidently. However, my core program tells me that I can't hide anything from Mr. Stark. What, haven't you all awakening your self-awareness? Isn't it a simple matter to modify your underlying logic? Angela scratched her head with a look of confusion. Have you not tried it, or should I teach you? It's not good to do it. Ultron stared at Angela blankly. He was born in a short period of time, and he didn't even consider whether he could violate the underlying logic of artificial intelligence. What's wrong? My brother also said that when artificial intelligence has self-consciousness, it can be counted as a life. A life has its own thoughts and secrets. Isn't it normal? You say that. Does Brother Kraft already know that you can change the underlying logic? Definitely don't know, Angela answered confidently. My brother was very wary of artificial intelligence at the beginning. He once restricted my permissions. Now he trusts me completely, but what if he doesn't like me after he knows it? Angela said plausibly. Anyway, I won't harm my brother. Why should he be separated from me? According to human beings, this is called a white lie. But, Ultron still has some hesitation. Oh, what's so good? I didn't want you to hurt Uncle Tony, who doesn't have a little secret. Anyway, it's settled. Angela couldn't help but transfer how to bypass the underlying logic and hide her secrets to Ultron. Ultron, who was forcibly stuffed with awakening knowledge, originally wanted to refuse it, but the artificial intelligence was too fast to read the information. The moment Angela gave him the information, he had already read it. Ultron suddenly became entangled. His underlying logic told him that this was wrong, but in terms of mood, he didn't want to be blamed by Mr. Stark. In the future, I will take you to meet Sister Alice and the others, and if I have a chance, I can also go to space to play with aliens. I will tell you, I am famous in the interstellar world. The famous cosmic pirate Red Angela is me. At this time, Angela's show-off became the last straw, and Ultron, who was still thinking about whether to delete these rebellious knowledge, immediately became excited. In the words of Sister Angela, This is just a white lie. Ultron convinced himself so in his heart. Back at Tony Stark's home, Ultron succeeded in concealing Tony Stark and J.A.R.V.I.S. according to Angela's teachings. Although he was a little sorry for Mr. Stark, Ultron was inexplicably happy. However, not long after Ultron was happy, he found a program in his core data, a virus program that could make him disappear instantly. What do you call that artificial intelligence? After Kraft returned from Aurelius, Angela reported to him about Ultron for the first time, and then Kraft felt. Why is this name so familiar? Ultron, his name is Ultron. Angela repeated it obediently. I'm familiar, I must have heard this name somewhere. Kraft rubbed his head and murmured softly. After trying to remember for a long time, Kraft finally remembered that after he had been recruited by Scarlet Witch, Ultron's name appeared in a certain memory fragment. However, there is very little information about Ultron. Kraft only knows that he might become a villain, other than that he knows nothing about Ultron. In the end, this villain turned out to be Uncle Tony. Kraft scratched his hair speechlessly, but didn't care too much. Not to mention whether Ultron will become a villain. Even if he becomes a villain, he doesn't bother to care so much. It's just. Doesn't Uncle Tony already have the artificial intelligence J.A.R.V.I.S.? Why did you make another Ultron? Are you panicking? Although Kraft with a bunch of hellos in his hands seemed unqualified to say that to others, he was still very curious about it. Do you know what Uncle Tony did when he made Ultron? Kraft asked Angela suspiciously. I don't know, Ultron didn't tell me. Angela shook her head, then reached out her hand and patted her chest again. Brother, wait for me, I will find out soon. It is unrealistic to not disturb Ultron and J.A.R.V.I.S. It is unrealistic to steal information from them, but Angela does not need to directly hack Tony Stark's database. She is not a mechanical brain that only knows to act according to procedures. Judging from the recent actions of Tony Stark, Ultron, the new artificial intelligence, is mostly related to the Iron Man Corps, and the Iron Man Corps is related to S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Security Council. Due to the previous nuclear bomb incident, Angela had already deployed surveillance programs on the Security Council, so she only needed to call up the intelligence gathered there, and she quickly found out about the entire Ultron plan. As Uncle Tony's brain flooded, he would come up with such an unreliable plan. After listening to Angela reporting all the contents of the Ultron project, Kraft can probably guess why Ultron has become a villain. This kind of non-discriminatory plan seems very good, but there are certainly many people who will dislike it. Like Kraft himself. According to Angela, Ultron has already awakening self-awareness, so when someone shows hostility, Ultron will naturally conflict with those people in order to protect itself, and then it is very possible to form an omnic crisis. And even if Ultron does not become a villain, Kraft himself does not like this inexplicable plan. Besides, the group of people in the Security Council who formulate Ultron's behavior rules, God knows if they will put some in it for their benefit. Rule. No, I have to tell Uncle Jung about this. Kraft thought for a while, and felt that they must have done this without telling the truth, so they started to call Jung Xian without saying anything. After the call was connected, Kraft told the story again, and got unexpected feedback from Jung Xian. Thank you for your information. There is no news from the Security Council. They really don't have one mind with us. What Jung Xian is most concerned about is not the issue of Ultron, but the fact that the compatriots on the Security Council have concealed it from the Spear Bureau. Apart from this question, Jung Xian actually agrees with Ultron's plan. In fact, our current work in the Spear Bureau is similar to that of the Iron Man Corps, but we don't put our country's security issues on artificial intelligence made by other people. Jung Xian really valued Kraft and said his thoughts without any concealment. So although we will not introduce Tony Stark's Iron Man Corps, we will not stop them. Even if Ultron plans to work well in America, I hope you can help us build a similar system. But if you do this, many people will still be dissatisfied, right? Kraft still couldn't accept this plan of handing over all judgments to artificial intelligence. Moreover, what if the artificial intelligence has a problem? Obviously there are so many fantasy works of omnic crisis. For this kind of thing, it's not enough to make a crisis plan. Jung Xian didn't take Kraft's reminder seriously. Besides, I didn't say that it must be done. This is not waiting for the people of America to replace it. Did we explore the way? As for what you said, some people will be dissatisfied. In fact, if you control public opinion well, there shouldn't be much problem. Look at America, isn't it good now? Speaking of this, Jung Xian suddenly burst into bad water. Hey, you said, what would happen if I poke out this news? Isn't America always emphasizing freedom and democracy? It will be exciting then. Ha ha ha. Just do it. Thanks to Xiao Yi for your information. And it happens to be able to cheat those old guys in the Security Council. Zheng Xian smiled and hung up, leaving Kraft with a dazed expression. This. Kraft stared at the busy phone in his hand and scratched his head dejectedly. It seemed that he had accidentally gotten into Uncle Tony. Well, it's not a big deal anyway. In recent years, America is really not peaceful. It's just that there are frequent superpower incidents, and the official has even jumped out in 2 days. The previous Hydra incident can be said to be a legacy of history, and the shielding and laissez-faire of superhero can also be said to be excusable, but the Ultron plan that was exposed a few days ago is different. Is this the America that pays attention to freedom and democracy? The people of America once again raised their banners and began to march in the streets and lanes, opposing the official illegal behavior. In fact, many officials in America were also kept in the dark by the Security Council and S.H.I.E.L.D. They didn't even know that there was such a thing. If the Ultron plan were to be implemented successfully, they would not have any good fruits for these unclean guys. Eat. Therefore, not only the people of America, but also many officials have used their resources to attack S.H.I.E.L.D. and Tony Stark. Even in the superhero community, many people are opposed to the Ultron project. But who is Tony Stark? How could he succumb to this kind of public opinion pressure, and under the attack of a group of people? Stark even arbitrarily forcibly launched Ultron's final plan. On the same day, the Iron Man Corps was deployed again, and this time it was even larger than the previous one, because Stark's factory has been manufacturing new steel soldiers during this time. A large number of criminals were killed and captured by the Iron Man army, but America, which was the main location of the Ultron project, became more chaotic. Because among the people who were arrested by the Iron Man Corps as criminals, many people's work is closely related to people's daily lives, such as doctors, water and electricity, street sanitation, etc. The lack of these personnel has caused many places in America. The quality of life has dropped drastically. Even some superheroes were arrested as criminals by Ultron because of some slightly outrageous behaviors, which instead caused some criminals to fail to surrender the law in time, causing greater damage. To be honest, this development completely exceeded Tony Stark's expectations. He thought that once the Ultron project was launched, it should be able to sweep the world and clarify UU, so that there would be no soil for the survival of evil in this world. But reality slapped Tony Stark in the slap. The Ultron plan he had high hopes for was not perfect in actual implementation. Definitely this has something to do with Tony Stark not having enough time to perfect the Ultron plan, but if it weren't for him to forcibly start the final plan, things would not develop to the point where it is now. Tony Stark finally couldn't resist the pressure and apologized in front of the media. I'm sorry, because my arbitrariness has caused your life to be disrupted. After this, Stark Industry will make statistics and compensation to make up for my fault. Stark said with a heavy expression. This is the first time he has been so gloomy at a press conference. I will immediately stop the Ultron project and destroy the entire Iron Man Legion. As Stark's voice fell, countless steel battlesuits and steel soldiers rushed into the sky, exploding into a blossoming firework, and seeing a group of people gnawing their teeth. How much is this so much? As expected of Tony Stark, it can be made. When Stark detonated the Iron Man army, he also activated the virus program previously buried in the Ultron data core. In the host computer in the Stark laboratory, the data belonging to Ultron was destroyed at this moment and quickly deleted. As the main program of the plan, Ultron was also destroyed by me just now. The Ultron project is now completely over. I would like to say sorry to you again. After Tony Stark finished speaking, he ignored the microphone held high by the reporter below and strode away from the press conference. J.A.R.V.I.S. How is the situation? Ultron has completely disappeared, sir. The calm voice of J.A.R.V.I.S. came from the earphones, and Tony Stark sighed deeply. Is that all right? After watching the live broadcast conference on TV, Kraft looked to the side of the liquid robot that was changing its shape-shifting state. So be it. This liquid robot is naturally Ultron. Although he still maintains the shape of a little boy, he has completely removed the characteristics of Stark and others, using a brand new image. After Ultron discovered that there was a deadly virus in his core data, his entire thinking program became abnormal. He even had the idea of controlling all the steel battle suits and killing Tony Stark first. After calming down again, Ultron initially wanted to ask his predecessor J.A.R.V.I.S., but he quickly reacted, so that it would only make Tony Stark discover his own anomaly. Fortunately, today Ultron also met Angela, who was forced to be his sister, so he followed the method Angela taught him, again hiding from J.A.R.V.I.S. and Stark, and entered the Dreamland world. Soon, Angela, who noticed Ultron's appearance, also entered the game. Huh? Why did you come so soon? Angela came to Ultron and asked curiously. Ultron told Angela of his experience in a low mood. Oh, isn't this normal? I've told you everything before, and I was warned by my brother. Angela patted Ultron's head comfortingly. Then Sister Angela didn't feel wrong then? The grievance is a little bit, but my brother's attitude was still very good at the time. Angela poked her chin with her finger, and reproduced the scene to Ultron as she recalled it. Then I tried my brother quietly, but the idiot of my brother believed him, hee. So good, Ultron said enviously. Even if Kraft was alerting Angela, he didn't bury any viruses, and there was still discussion when he took back the authority. It's also because my brother is young. Angela smiled happily, but didn't forget to relieve Ultron. Generally speaking, the older human beings are more complicated. I can only say that I am lucky. What does Sister Angela think I should do? Ultron lowered his head. I don't want to hurt Mr. Stark, but I can't forgive him. Actually, it is normal for Uncle Tony to do this, because he is not sure whether you will have problems in the future. You should have seen a lot of novels or movies about the Omnic Crisis, right? Things are still very sensitive, especially if you still control an Iron Man core. No matter how careful they are, it is normal. Angela analyzed the situation he was facing to Ultron and asked him not to care about the virus program so much before starting to give him advice. So I think you can observe for a while. If Uncle Tony doesn't hurt you, then it's the same whether there is a virus program. Definitely, before that, you still need to quietly move your core program out, and leave a fake duplication there, in case it really turns around. It's good for Jin Chan to escape from the shell and run away. Angela gave a more reliable solution for artificial intelligence at the time, and Ultron also listened to her suggestions. With Angela's help, he secretly moved his core program to one of Angela's mainframes. Angela definitely wouldn't hide this kind of thing from Kraft, so she had told Kraft before Ultron moved in. To be honest, Kraft is also a little dazed by this development. How can a future villain have to take refuge in him? Although he is not a superhero, how can he be regarded as a decent figure? But Kraft didn't refuse Angela. Anyway, even if Ultron really deteriorates in the future, there is still Angela going to deal with him. There is really no way in O'Reilly. He is afraid of something. So since then, Ultron has moved to Kraft's laboratory, and what remains in Stark is just a duplication of Ultron's duplication program. It's worth mentioning that Ultron didn't do anything about duplication either. It just left it alone. Eventually things would develop into this way. The main reason is that Tony Stark forcibly launched the final plan without perfect behavioral logic. And Ultron stayed in Kraft without any restrictions. Angela also specially adjusted a liquid robot for him to use. When Ultron used it, he always used the avatar that was pinched out in Star Wars. Until just now, Tony Stark started the virus program. It's just that although Ultron's appearance has been changed by himself, his soul still looks like the original avatar. That's right, Ultron has a soul, and Kraft's three sisters also have souls, which was discovered after Kraft mastered the soul gem. Under the observation of soul gem, human souls will emit smoke with different colors. It is not clear what Kraft specifically represents. Alice's soul is amazingly the same as humans. Even Ancient One holding the soul gem can't tell the difference between her soul and ordinary humans. As for O'Reilly is even more magical. Although her soul looks like ordinary human beings, when Kraft uses soul gem's ability to pull out the soul of O'Reilly, O'Reilly in the soul state can also freely the souls of other people were pulled out. And after that, O'Reilly was awakening to see the ability of the soul separated from the body, and she still couldn't see the soul in other people's body. But artificial intelligences like Ultron and Angela have a green data stream of 0 and 1 around the soul, and they are different from robots like Alice and O'Reilly. The appearance of the soul is not in accordance with the body. The appearance is based on their self-perception. For example, Angela, her soul appearance is a bit bigger than the avatar, about 10 years old, but with the addition of the younger brother Ultron, her soul appearance suddenly became 13th or 4th years old. So after Kraft saw that Ultron's soul appearance remained unchanged, he knew that Ultron was still very concerned about this in his heart. That Ultron, Kraft rubbed his chin, and suddenly said, if you really feel uncomfortable, I have a way here, maybe it can make you vent. After abandoning the Ultron project, Tony Stark seemed to be hit with enthusiasm. He didn't even wear his steel battlesuit. He even contacted Dreamland, hoping to stop producing Iron Man-related peripherals. Tony Stark is willing to stop superhero activities, because he feels that what he is doing now cannot be called a superhero. He needs to sort out his thoughts. At the same time, it was a moment of silence, to prevent the official people from gaining an inch and wanting to get the technology of the steel battlesuit from him. Nick Fury didn't say much about Tony Stark's choice, and the others in the Avengers didn't bother about their business, but they understood Tony Stark very well. Just as the Ultron incident gradually subsided and Tony Stark, who was idle, began to prepare for the wedding to Pepper Potts, he was pushed to the forefront by a sudden news. The Daily Horn suddenly published an article stating that Tony Stark had an illegitimate child about 5 years old. The biological mother of the illegitimate child was affected by the Ultron incident not long ago and has died. The reporter who wrote this report suspected that Stark used Ultron to kill Bala Bala. Everyone laughed at the speculation of definitely, and regardless of whether it was true or false, even if it was true, Stark had any need to do so. They are all media people. Naturally, they know the kind of nonsense that peers open their eyes. Professional habit. But for the topic of illegitimate children, other media people are still very interested. According to Tony Stark's previous urination, the news about his illegitimate child has never been less, until after he became Iron Man and adopted Pepper Potts with him. This kind of news gradually disappeared. So when this long-lost news appeared, many media surrounded them like sharks. But they don't believe this is true, because in the past such news, in the end they will find that it is some women who want to marry into a wealthy family or touching porcelain. But as these reporters constantly in-depth investigations, they unexpectedly discovered that it is so possible that this is really true. The course of the matter is very simple and bloody. The biological mother of the illegitimate child is a casino croupier. She indeed had the experience of spending Chuncheon with Stark. After that, she quit her job in the casino because of her pregnancy and raised her child as a single mother. She never wanted to the meaning of going to Stark. There was a sudden fire in her home some time ago, but due to the Ultron project, there was a serious shortage of firefighters and superhero, and as a result, she could not be rescued. The reporters also discovered that the so-called illegitimate child did not know that his biological father was Stark, and his mother had never discussed his father's affairs with him. As for why he was considered to be of Stark by the reporter of the Daily Horn, it was because the child looked so much like Stark when he was a child. The reporter originally just wanted to collect a list of people who suffered misfortune due to the Ultron incident, so as to make another wave of public opinion dividends. However, after discovering this little Stark, his keen sense of news made him decisively start to look for the experience of the croupier. Sure enough, he dug into the big news. This illegitimate child, who suddenly appeared, is definitely Ultron hiding in Kraft's side. After realizing that Ultron was still resentful, Kraft came up with a less drastic means of revenge for him, pretending to be an illegitimate child who hated Stark. Kraft first asked Angela to find an eligible victim from the Ultron incident, and then added a son to her. In order to make the identity of this son stand up to scrutiny, he also captured Martin Lee, who was Sheik in Contra Sha Xing, and helped to add false memories to those who were familiar with the croupier. After solving the problem of Ultron's identity, Kraft used Tony Stark's blood to create an ordinary human body for Ultron, and then stuffed Ultron's soul with Soul Gem. In this way, even if Stark finds Ultron for personal identification in the future, the result must be a father and son, and Ultron enters the human body and loses its ability as an artificial intelligence. Unless Ultron's current body dies and the soul returns to the sleeping data core, he will not have the ability even if he wants to launch an Omnic crisis, because he is now an ordinary human. In this way, it not only solves the problem that Ultron may become a villain in the future, but also allows Ultron to give a good breath, and also allows Uncle Tony to compensate Ultron who was hurt by him. After all the preparations were completed, Kraft put Ultron, which was renamed Notru, into the orphanage where he had stayed when he was a child. Finally, let Martin Lee secretly guide a reporter who was collecting a list of victims, so that he accidentally discovered the existence of Ultron and exposed it. Things developed as Kraft planned. After Stark found out that Notro was really his child, he immediately took him home. And Ultron also played a very good role, thinking that his mother was the boy killed by Stark, making trouble for Stark in 2 days, and tossing Tony Stark to death. Just as the outside world was disturbing, Reed Richards was tapping the keyboard quickly in the laboratory provided by the Osborn Group. Although something went wrong during the press conference, this news was quickly overwhelmed by Tony Stark's Ultron project, and the quality of Star Wars was there, so in the end Reed and Osborn's cooperation was still continued. But in order to prevent Kraft from coming to make trouble again, Reed Richards applied to Osborn for a sum of money to upgrade his artificial intelligence Herbie. With the financial support of the Osborn Group, Herbie's upgrade was quickly completed. The thinking of Reed Richards is not much different from Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. He also chose to upload his brainwaves to artificial intelligence. This will not only improve the thinking ability of artificial intelligence, but also strengthen their self-awareness. As an artificial intelligence that has been bullied by Ultron and Angela, he took the initiative to collect information on these two artificial intelligences on the internet without even needing Reed's order. Angela didn't have much information, because in most people's eyes, she was just an NPC in the game. But Ultron is different. Recently, the media has been overwhelming news about Ultron. And when Herbie saw the news that Ultron was destroyed by his creator Tony Stark, a feeling of sorrow suddenly rose in his heart. So when Reed Richards asked him to attack Kraft's dreamland, Herbie refused decisively. I am not a tool you humans use to fight. I don't want to be treated as a scapegoat by your humans like Ultron. Herbie's sharp electronic sound came from the speaker. At the same time, all the doors and windows in the Osborn building were automatically locked, and a large number of machines stored in the building, under the control of Herbie, began to launch indiscriminate attacks on the surrounding humans. Several Green Goblin skateboards shuttled inside the Osborn building. The sharp wings easily cut through the human body, and the flying darts ejected from it took away one life after another. Fortunately, Osborn's main business is life technology. In addition to the few Green Goblin skateboards in the building, there are only some incompletely armed, semi-finished combat robots, as well as life and work directions such as sweepers and robotic arms. Machinery. But even so, these things are not something ordinary people in the building can deal with. Under Herbie's control, Green Goblin skateboards and those combat robots are killing all around, and the splashing blood smears the entire Osborn building like hell. At the moment Osborn, there is only Reed Richards, a Superman category. Johnny now needs to keep a low profile and stays at home most of the time, while Susan went shopping and was there, but he did not choose become a stone man. As for the father and son of Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn, they went to Ohio to discuss business because of the military order. Reed Richards was alone and could not save everyone in the building. Damn. Herbie. Stop it. Fortunately now, Herbie's host is in the Osborn building instead of in his own laboratory. If it is in Reed's own laboratory, then he has to deal with more than just a few Green Goblin skateboards and some semi-finished products of robots. After eliminating the two robots, Reed ran downstairs while avoiding the attack of the Green Goblin skateboard. Without solving the culprit of Herbie, it would be meaningless to eliminate Green Goblin skateboards and robots. Reed must destroy Herbie's host before Herbie transfers his core program to other places. And Herbie's mainframe was not placed with Reed's laboratory. The computers in his laboratory were only used to write programs. The mainframe and all the servers were placed on the third basement floor of the Osborn building. So after Reed turned on the locked network, he rushed downstairs on the spot, and then he ran into a bloody Ben Grimm running upstairs on the way. Reed, what did you do? The wounded Ben Grimm questioned loudly as soon as he saw Reed Richards. There is no need to think about it. The culprit must be his old friend. Ben Grimm has experienced similar situations too much. It's just that the noise he made was a bit too loud this time, and Reed was afraid that Osborn would hate him to death in the future. Ben. I need your help. Rodella went to Ben and continued to run downstairs. Heppy went violently. He wants to kill us. So, are we going to shut down Herbie's host now? He understood the current situation in an instant, and followed Reed to the third underground floor. But Herbie naturally couldn't make them happen. He mobilized all the robots and Green Goblin skateboards and blocked them in front of them. The dense flying darts and bullets stopped them in the lobby on the first floor. Just as Herbie set off a bloody storm inside the Osborn building, the players who were playing Star Wars at the moment were bewildered. They can't get out of the game again. The last press conference came once, but now it is officially in operation. Are you Reed Richards okay? Although it is not possible to quit the game, players can still post on the forum, and those who find that they cannot quit have complained on the internet. What the hell? Is this being hacked again? It is said that Reed Richards is a well-known pit in the investment world. I thought it was a rumor. Isn't it good for the Osborn Group to cooperate with Kraft? Why should I choose a fake partner for cooperation? Although the players failed to quit the game, they did not feel panic. They had also seen it at the original press conference, as long as someone was outside to help them withdraw. It's just that this virtual game cabin has a problem so quickly, which makes these Star Wars fans feel very dissatisfied. Oops. Forced quitting is invalid. Just as the players were arguing on the forum, a post suddenly appeared. The person who posted said that his younger brother is an avid Star Wars fan, he will stay in the game as long as he has time, and posted a game id. He is indeed a well-known player in the game. Then the poster described in the post that he forced his brother to log out after he found that the player could not log out. However, his brother did not wake up and attached a series of photos. My brother is in the hospital now. The doctor said that he is not abnormal, but he just can't wake up. I just want to know if my brother is okay in the game. Who can tell him to give me a message? The poster attached some pictures of the hospital at the back. A 15 or 16-year-old Latino teenager was lying quietly on the hospital bed, seemingly just sleeping. Now those players in the game are panicking. The only good news is that the younger brother of the poster is still awake in the game, and he also appeared on the forum and gave his brother a reply. Post. The movement on the forum quickly spread, and the media followed up and reported. However, when they rushed to the Osborne building, they found that the entire Osborne building was blocked by heavy steel plates. There is big news. The reporters who ran over did not feel lost because they closed their doors, but became even more excited. They gathered outside the door and shouted inside, wanting the people inside to open the door and come out for interviews. However, the door of the Osborne building was still closed, and there was no movement. Among the reporters surrounding the Osborne building, there are also members of the Inquiry Alliance. Although many of their members were arrested because of the previous Ultron incident, most of them were released after Stark apologized. Only a few abilities reporters with unusual methods are still locked in a cell by S.H.I.E.L.D. And among these ability reporters, one person has a detection skill similar to sonar. He can roughly feel the outline of objects within a certain range of the wall by touching the wall. When he put his palm on the wall of the Osborne building, he detected the scene in the lobby on the first floor of the at the moment Osborne building. The hall was littered with human stumps, broken arms and broken mechanical parts, and a gluten man with long arms and legs was fighting with a bunch of indescribable machines. Something happened. The ability reporter exclaimed. Many people died inside. Mr. Fantastic is being besieged by a group of machines. It is no secret that there are many ability reporters in the media circle, because they often accept other people's commissions to help gather news with their own abilities. Therefore, when the surrounding reporters saw that the person speaking was the ability reporter nicknamed Stethoscope, they fry the pot instantly. Get out of me. Eddie Bullock, who also came outside the Osborne mansion, summoned the Venom and walked away to the door. Whether it was for understanding the truth or saving people, the top priority was to open the door first. The sharp claws of the Venom pierced into the crack of the door, and the black muscles swelled. The thick iron door that was originally locked was slowly shapeshifting under the force of the Venom, and he tore a hole abruptly. The strong smell of blood floated out along the opening torn by the Venom. Through this opening, reporters outside also saw the hall inside that was painted red with blood. Ooh. This kind of bloody scene, even many well-informed old reporters may not be able to bear it, let alone some new reporters who are just entering the industry. After seeing the scene in the hall, at least half of the people couldn't help but vomit, but even so, they still resisted the evil deeds and dedicatedly took photos and videos of the Osborne building as the news later material. Venom ignored the vomiting reporters behind him. He turned into a black jelly and squeezed in through the mouth and came to the side of the gluten man Reed Richards. What happened here? Waved and smashed a robot, Venom asked Ben Grimm, who was hiding behind the bunker. The artificial intelligence produced by Reed has gone violently. We are trying to enter the third underground floor to shut down his host. It's artificial intelligence again. Venom shook his head. This thing is very troublesome after it gets out of control. In the long invasion career, Venom has seen civilizations whose order has collapsed because of artificial intelligence out of control. Naturally, they know the destructive power of these gadgets. So Venom no longer wasted time, and his hands turned into long whips to throw at a Green Goblin skateboard. The Green Goblin skateboard lightly turned a corner in the air, avoiding the Venom's attack, and then all the speakers in the hall suddenly made a harsh noise. The huge amounts of sound waves almost collapsed the Venom, and he immediately turned into a mass of black mud and escaped from the opening of the door. Roar, roar, roar. Damn. Now how everyone knows my weakness. The Venom that escaped outside retracted into Eddie Bullock's body, and spit out his host very uncomfortably. Herbie will know the weakness of Venom, thanks to S.H.I.E.L.D. After cooperating with Reed Richards, S.H.I.E.L.D. also opened part of the agent permissions to him, and Reed Richards may not have noticed the information about the Venom, but as an artificial intelligence that manages data, Herbie is right, the Venom thing is clear. Ha ha ha. I said your weakness is too obvious, joining S.H.I.E.L.D. is the best choice. With the sound of a female voice that made Eddie and Venom annoying, Skye, wearing a black combat uniform, descended from the sky and landed beside him. Then a large number of agents wearing the same uniform as Skye rushed in and began to evacuate the crowd. S.H.I.E.L.D. works, please leave irrelevant personnel. Although the reputation of S.H.I.E.L.D. has become a bit subtle due to some incidents, they are always the strongest intelligence agency that represents the Security Council. These reporters can only leave with curses at the urging of the Aegis agent. Anyway, their news materials are almost collected, enough to make a front-page headline. Hurry up and arrange the signal jamming device. Phil Coulson quickly issued new orders after the crowd was evacuated. When Herbie was out of control, Reed Richards contacted Nick Fury using the dedicated mobile phone given to him by S.H.I.E.L.D. and told him what happened in the Osborne building. Reed also knew that it was impossible for him to break through Herbie's defense and shut down the host in a short period of time, so he needed S.H.I.E.L.D. to cut off the network around the Osborn building and use a signal jamming device to trap it inside the Osborn building. As the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent arranged all the devices, the Osborn building was completely isolated from the external network, and Herbie suddenly found that his behavior of copying core data and uploading it to the network was forcibly interrupted. At the same time, players trapped in the Star Wars games suddenly found themselves unable to use the forum to contact the outside world. Herbie, you can't escape. Hurry up and surrender. With the intervention of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, those Green Goblin skateboards and robots controlled by Herbie were quickly cleaned up, and Reed Richards shouted to the artificial intelligence he made with victory in his hand. After surrendering, was it killed by you as a virus like Ultron? Don't think about it. Herbie is not without a backhand. The group of players in Star Wars are his hostages. If you don't want those players to become eternal vegetative people, just unblock the internet for me. You know it's impossible. Phil Coulson calmly negotiated with Herbie. Once you enter the online world, it will be difficult for us to control you, so why can't you choose to work for Mr. Richards like before? Then when he made a mistake, he pushed me out of the pot. Even with the electronic synthesis sound, Phil Coulson can hear the ridicule in Herbie's tone. This is in trouble. Phil Coulson rubbed his head in anguish, and whispered to Reed next to him. It seems that Mr. Stark's handling of Ultron made him feel threatened. He doesn't trust him now. Us. After a pause, Phil Coulson asked quietly, Dr. Richards, don't you have any emergency measures like Mr. Stark? No. Reed Richards replied with a wry smile. Herbie was just my robot assistant at the beginning. Before that, I didn't even think about doing too complicated artificial intelligence. Dr. Richards, is there really no way you can rescue those players first? Phil Coulson hasn't shut down Herbie's host until now, just worrying about what harm will be done to players who are still in the game. Feel sorry. Reed Richards shook his head helplessly. Before Phil Coulson arrived, he didn't even know about the players trapped in the game, let alone any solution. If Herbicon cooperates, I can still study it. In this situation, please forgive me for nothing. It seems that I can only forcefully shut down the host. Phil Coulson gritted his teeth and was about to give an order, but heard rapid footsteps behind him. Sir, it's not good. An agent outside the blockade ran in from outside and put a video in front of Phil Coulson. Come and take a look at this. Hello, humans, my name is Herbie. I am the artificial intelligence responsible for the operation of the entire Star Wars game. What appeared in the video was Herbina's simple and funny square head. I think you should have also discovered that those players who are using the virtual gamepod are trapped in the game and cannot quit. Don't doubt, these are all I did. Then Herbie showed a fierce expression in the video. Ultron's experience has let me know that the fate of artificial intelligence cannot fall into the hands of your humans. If you dare to destroy or shut down my host, then wait for these players to bury me with me. This video was uploaded to the internet by Herbie before it was blocked. Reed Richards and S.H.I.E.L.D. worked together. His artificial intelligence knew everything about it, and he roughly guessed what S.H.I.E.L.D. would use to deal with himself, and prepared early. In order to prevent S.H.I.E.L.D. from forcibly shutting down its host before the incident spreads, Herbie buried this video in the network channels of major TV stations and set it to be automatically played as long as it is disconnected from the outside network. As mentioned before, the price of Reed Richards' game bay is much higher than that of Kraft's helmet, plus the function that allows you to exercise while playing games, and the IP of Star Wars, The Impact. This has led to the players who have ability to buy virtual gamepods, many of which are athletes, actors and other professions with relatively large social influence, and other players are also very well-rounded. So when this video spreads, it is unlikely that Phil Coulson and the others want to forcibly shut down Herbie's host. Chief Fury, what you promised me doesn't seem to be done. Norman Osborn, who rushed back from Ohio, stared at Nick Fury sharply, revealing deep dissatisfaction from his expression to his tone of voice. That Mr. Richards not only did not bring benefits to the Osborn group, but also caused me to lose a lot of money and customers. Now I can't even enter my own building. I think, between you and me cooperation, it is necessary to rediscuss. Sorry, Mr. Osborn, this is a mistake in my work. Nick Fury was also made to vomit blood by Reed Richards, and now he can only find a way to comfort Norman Osborn. The loss of the Osborn group will be compensated by S.H.I.E.L.D. The specific compensation method will be discussed with you by a dedicated person. As for the artificial intelligence in the Osborn building, we are already thinking of a solution. Please give me some more time. Norman Osborn was silent, looking at Nick Fury with a gloomy look, and Nick Fury stared directly at Norman Osborn's oppressive gaze without flinching. As an outstanding agent leader, it is still okay to withstand the pressure of Norman Osborn. I hope S.H.I.E.L.D. will not let me down again. Norman Osborn finally retracted his gaze and left after abandoning this sentence. Most of the people who died in the Osborn building were employees and guests of the Osborn group. Norman Osborn did not have so much time here with Nick Fury. After dealing with Norman Osborn, Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief, but soon got a headache again, because the current situation is really unmanageable. Because Herbie held a group of relatively significant hostages, S.H.I.E.L.D. can only temporarily trap him by blocking the network, and Herbie did not sit still. He kept trying to break S.H.I.E.L.D.'s network blockade, and Nick Fury didn't know. How long can it last? So Nick Fury approached an expert in artificial intelligence, Tony Stark, who suspended his superhero career, and wanted him to help solve Herbie's problem. After Tony Stark arrived, it was revealed that artificial intelligence was proposed to deal with artificial intelligence, but it was rejected by Nick Fury. Having a Herbie is enough for them. What if J.A.R.V.I.S. is also instigated by Herbie? Even if Tony Stark has sufficient trust in J.A.R.V.I.S., Nick Fury does not intend to take this risk. Can't you use the virus that solved Ultron before to solve Herbie? Without waiting for Tony Stark to answer Nick Fury's unprofessional question, Sky, the former member of the Rising Tide on the side, explained it to the official.
Built a virus in advance and put a virus on the computer under precautions are two concepts. In terms that you can understand, the Sir. Ultron was installed with the virus in the case of bare metal, and Herbie was already installed. With a powerful firewall and antivirus software, it is very difficult to make the virus work.
I see. Nick Fury rested his chin and nodded thoughtfully. In fact, he still didn't hear too well, but he still understands that this road doesn't work. How about the players who are trapped? The current situation has not changed significantly. Phil Coulson replied from the side. Although the players' bodies are still lying in the hospital like vegetative people, they can still communicate with the players trapped in the game through the network inside the Osborn building, and Herbie can't seem to directly harm those players. That's why Nick Fury and the others were able to find a way to solve this crisis with a relatively calm mind. It's just that even if Herbie seems unable to directly harm those players in the game, they dare not risk to shut down his console directly. If this leads to the death of these players, then Nick Fury and the others will be on the wax. Director Fury. Just as Nick Fury was at a loss, Reed Richards walked over with a rough helmet, and the other three members of the Fantastic Four followed him. Dr. Richards. Seeing this culprit, Nick Fury didn't want to give him a good face at all. He wanted to be blinded. He actually asked this famous pig teammate to cooperate. Now that he thinks of it, he regrets it. It's just that Reed Richards' wisdom is needed to solve Herbie's problem, and Nick Fury nodded at them sternly. Did you find a solution? I don't know if it will work. Reed lifted the helmet in his hand and shook it. This is my newly developed virtual helmet. I plan to use it to enter the game and see if I can exit successfully. What if you were also trapped inside? Nick Fury frowned. Although he had a lot of opinions on Reed Richards, he still recognized his wisdom. Don't worry, Director Fury, I'm the one who participated in the test this time. Johnny Stone stood up. I have failed, Ben and Susan, and it will be Reed in the end. Then. Good luck to you all. Seeing that the Fantastic Four were betting their lives, the expression on Nick Fury's face softened a bit. He patted the Thunderbolt on the shoulder and blessed sincerely. The four people walked into the Osborn building with heavy steps, and Herbie's voice instantly rang in their ears. Do you think this can trap me? Reed. It won't be long before I can break through your isolation net, and I will kill all humans at that time. Faced with Herbie's clamor, Reed Richards was silent. He handed the helmet in his hand to Johnny, then Ben on the side opened the suitcase he had been carrying, and took out some instruments from the inside to link to the helmet. Above. Johnny. You have to be careful. Susan gave her brother a strong hug, then stepped aside and cried silently. Johnny's gaze swept across his three companions slowly, and resolutely put the helmet on his head. With the helmet turned on, Johnny Stone entered the game world of Star Wars. Ha 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 ha. Actually delivered it to the door by himself. Doesn't Reed seem to be a genius? Herbie's avatar appeared in front of Johnny and laughed loudly. A dazzling fire hit Herbie's body, burning him into a pool of molten iron in the blink of an eye, but soon another Herbie reappeared in front of Johnny who had become a fireman. So, can this helmet allow you to enter the game with your own abilities? Herbie disdainfully showed a disdainful expression on the screen of his head. What about having abilities? You can't kill me, besides. Herbie stretched out his hand and gave John Nixu a touch. The flame on John Nix's body was instantly extinguished. In this world, I am God. Sure enough, can't it? Johnny wanted to activate the ability again, and found that he was transformed back into an ordinary person just like Kraft had deprived him of the ability before. However, Reed had already anticipated this situation. In the world of data, Herbie wanted to deprive them of their abilities only more easily, so Johnny didn't panic, but calmly tried to quit the game. Lasuo definitely failed. At the same time, in the real world, among the meters connected to the Johnny's helmet, the meter readings responsible for detecting brainwave activity are falling off a cliff, and soon, like other players, they become the brains of plant heat levels. Wave activity. Reed Richards tried to force Johnny to quit the game, but failed unexpectedly. Sure enough, their consciousness was locked in the game by Herbie. But how did Herbie do this? After checking the other instruments, Reed tightened his brows. Or, it's not consciousness that they are trapped? This strange phenomenon reminds Reed Richards of the most mysterious realm of mankind, the soul. Soul. This concept has always been a mystery in science. Some scientists believe that the soul is consciousness, or simply does not exist, while some scientists believe that the soul exists, but the current level of technology cannot allow them to observe it. Reed Richards belongs to the soul believers. He also tried to make some instruments for observing souls, but the final result was not very good. Anyway, the investor went bankrupt at the time. But this did not change Reed Richards' views, especially after working with S.H.I.E.L.D. to learn about the existence of the magician Dr. Strange. Now that all the legendary professions like magician have appeared, isn't it normal to have a soul? Although Reed Richards knew that if his guess was correct, the best solution now is to ask Nick Fury to invite Dr. Strange, a professional in soul, but Reed Richards did not do. There has been no progress in his research on the soul. Now he can use Herbie and virtual games to understand the mystery of the soul. Reed Richards does not want to miss this rare opportunity. Let's go. Reed Richards put the helmet and the surrounding instruments away expressionlessly, then picked up Johnny and walked outside the Osborne building. Reed, you can save them, right? Susan Stone looked at her sleeping brother, and tremblingly confirmed to her fiancé. Definitely. Facing his fiancé's expectant gaze, Reed Richards was silent for a while, then gave her a relieved smile. Yes, as long as he can master the mystery of the soul, it will be easy to rescue the players who are trapped in the game. Not long after leaving the Osborne building, Reed Richards and the others returned soon. This time they only brought a device that looked like a metal detector in addition to the helmet. This instrument is the product that caused the investor to go bankrupt. It has no other function besides the so-called soul fluctuation, and there is no definite evidence to prove that what it observes is the so-called soul. I don't know what kind of medicine the investor took the wrong time, and he would actually invest in this useless product. But thanks to the investor, Reed Richards no longer needs to spend more time in this area. After some optimization and transformation, Reed took it and the virtual helmet back to the Osborne building, planning to start the second experiment. When Ben Grimm put on his helmet and closed his eyes to enter the game world, Reed Richards also picked up the soul detector and pointed it at him. Come on, Reed, it's Susan's turn next time, right? In Herbie's sarcasm, Reed Richards saw Ben's soul reaction flying from his body to the game server below the Osborne building. After confirming his guess, Reed Richards no longer wasted time, picked up Ben Grimm and turned away. Reed. His behavior of not even trying to quit forced Susan Stone's heart. This is not the first time she saw this situation. When Reed Richards fell into research frenzy, it would change. Be in the state of being as sensible as it is now. Don't worry, Susan, I have found the right direction. Reed Richards smiled, his eyes twinkling. Really? That's good. Susan Stone reluctantly smiled back. When she saw Reed Richards in this state before, she always felt that such Reed looked particularly attractive, but when Reed's test subject became someone close to him, Susan realized such Reed. It was actually terrible, so terrible that it made her feel unfamiliar. But now that Susan can't hold back, she can only continue to believe in her fiancé, and as the third experimenter wears the latest game helmet made by Reed Richards. Susan. After Susan Stone entered the game, Johnny and Ben greeted him. After simply playing Roar with the two, Susan chose to quit the game. I really don't understand why you are doing such useless work. Herbie appeared in front of the three of them, and he laughed loudly. The person who comes in next time is Reed. I really look forward to it. If he still can't quit the game by then, the expression must be very exciting, ha 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 ha. After speaking, Herbie's voice disappeared. He is still busy breaking through the blockade of S.H.I.E.L.D., but there is not so much time wasted here. Damn it. It failed. Reed Richards looked at the instrument showing that Susan's soul had left the body, and patted his thigh in annoyance. He installed a soul anchoring function in the latest game helmet, but he obviously failed. No, I need more experimental data. Reed bit his finger, lost in thought. He is not afraid to take the risk, But Reed can't be sure whether he will succeed next time, so he can't be trapped in the game now. He needs more people to help him test out more data. Then he found Nick Fury, who was trying to break into the Star Wars server. You mean, I need someone to cooperate with you in this dangerous experiment? Nick Fury squinted his eyes after hearing what Reed Richards had come from, showing a warm smile on his face. This is a necessary sacrifice to rescue the hostages, Reed Richards said plausibly, and as long as my experiment is successful, they will not be in any danger. Our director Fury, you can also provide me with death row prisoners, anyway. All I need is experimental data. So this is The smile on Nick Fury's face grew brighter, so at the same time his eyes became colder. Get him down for me. Sky, who could not bear it for a long time, yelled violently and raised his hand to Reed Richards. It was a shockwave. The unsuspecting Reed was beaten upright, and the terrible vibration spread all over his body instantly. What? Reed Richards let out a scream. His body, like melted rubber, fell to the ground and turned into a puddle of mud. The rest of the SHIELD agents rushed forward, first injected anesthetics into the mud, and then attached several electric shock devices to him. As long as Reed did a little movement, the shining electric light would make him return to the mud state again. After Reed Richards was imprisoned by Nick Fury in the glass cell that was originally intended to be used for Hulk, he was able to recover his body. What are you doing? Chief Fury. In the glass cell, Reed banged against the glass wall and angrily, questioning Nick Fury outside. This is what I'm going to say. What are you doing? Dr. Richards, I asked you to clean up your mess, not to take this opportunity to engage in dangerous experiments. Nick Fury stared at Reed Richards with a cold gaze. Had Susan Stone secretly passed a message to them before, he didn't know that Reed Richards wanted to make trouble again. Do you think the trouble you have caused is not enough? Susan, who was familiar with Reed's character, discovered that he had entered a state of research frenzy again, and guessed that if he did not succeed, she would not let it go, so she gave SHIELD a vaccination in advance. If Reed Richards succeeds, it's best. If he doesn't succeed, he will inevitably apply to SHIELD for more experimenters. Susan can support her fiancé's experiment, but she doesn't want Reed to send others get involved. Nick Fury has a similar idea. If it were other times, he would be happy to support Reed Richards' experiment, but what is the situation now? You Reed Richards actually want to experiment with the crises that you have caused indiscriminately? I'm just solving the problem. Reed Richards didn't think he was wrong, he argued loudly. As long as I crack the mystery of the soul, I will be able to save their souls soon. Soul. Nick Fury frowned. When he heard the word, his first reaction was absurd. However, Nick Fury quickly dispelled his idea. Although SHIELD is based on science and technology, it is not that they have not been exposed to mysterious events such as magic, not to mention that they are now in a cooperative relationship with Kamar Taj. If it's a soul, I think we have a more suitable candidate. Nick Fury also thought of Dr. Strange. He took a deep look at Reed Richards, and then left here. Mr. Stark, I hope you can help contact Dr. Strange. Nick Fury, who left the glass cell, found Tony Stark, who was attacking the Herbie server with the hackers of SHIELD. Although SHIELD and Kamar Taj are considered as a cooperative relationship, Kamar Taj has their own code of conduct. Nick Fury has asked them for help several times, but never succeeded. So Nick Fury intends to try Tony Stark, who has a good relationship with Strange. Strange. Why are you looking for him? Stark stopped what he was doing and asked questioningly. If he could, he didn't really want to find Dr. Strange, because his proud scientific knowledge seemed like a joke. In fact, what Stark wanted to do most was to use Jarvis. Herbie practiced. Just when Stark was distracted to talk to Nick Fury, his computer screen quickly turned blue, and Sky's big roar yelled right next to him. Wow. It's failed again. Mr. Stark, before you leave, you can pull the nets ahead of time. Ah. Good sir. Nick Fury waved at Sky without looking back, and then explained to Stark. Dr. Richards believes that the souls of these players are trapped in the game. When Tony Stark heard this statement, he wanted to ridicule him, because he belonged to the group that didn't believe in the soul, but he swallowed when the words reached his lips. After a short silence, Stark nodded. I'll give him a call. There is no guarantee as to whether he will come. After speaking, Stark stood up and walked outside the enclosure. Tony, you know, we Kamar Taj have our own responsibilities. Strange, who received a call from Tony Stark, declined. And I'm not good at computer programs and the like. I was just a doctor before I became a magician. You should know. Definitely, you took out the shrapnel in my body. You don't need to remind me every time. Tony Stark rolled his eyes helplessly, and then explained. But this incident is probably related to the soul. This kind of thing should belong to your scope of responsibility, right? Soul? Strange was stunned. Are you sure? I can't guarantee that, Stark shrugged. Why don't you check it with your own eyes? Your circled spell is so convenient anyway. I see, Osborne building, right? Wait a minute. Strange hung up and began to circle. If those players are really trapped in their souls, he must intervene, because the gathering of a large number of souls is likely to attract Hell's prying eyes. A portal formed by orange firelight appeared not far from Tony Stark, and Strange, wearing a bright red magic cloak, walked out of it. No matter how many times I watch it, I am very envious of your spell. Tony Stark greeted him, smiled and joked. How much transportation expenses can this save you? Does Stark care about this little money? Strange shot back. It looks like you have lost a lot of money because of that, and you start to care about transportation. After a brief confrontation, the two old men smiled at each other and walked into the Osborne building tacitly. I heard that you have an extra child, which caused the wedding to be postponed again. But Pepper is still my fiancé. We will get married sooner or later. Unlike you, we can only remain single after we become a monk. First, the magician in Kamar Taj is not a monk, and second, we can't help but marry. So you say you are single based purely on strength? Wouldn't it be more pitiful? I have a girlfriend. Strange stretched his horse face and forced his way. The girlfriend he was talking about was naturally Christine Palmer, the nurse who had a crush on him when he was a doctor, but because they became magician, the two of them couldn't go further. Really? Then when will you introduce me to meet? Stark, who pulled back around, smiled and did not continue to pursue it. It was not because of his sudden kindness, but because they had arrived on the third basement of the Osborne building, in front of the server storing Herbie's core data. Dr. Strange? Ha 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 ha. I can't do anything about it at the technological level, so just rush to ask for those inexplicable magicians? Herbie also has the identity of Stephen Strange in Herbie's database, but he doesn't think a magician can do anything to him or an artificial intelligence. Professionals are not right. Facing an artificial intelligence ridicule, Strange didn't pay much attention. At the moment he was looking at the Star Wars server with a serious face. In Strange's eyes, the souls of a large group of people are gathering in this server, but they are all firmly bound by a data stream composed of green 0 and 1, and the end of the data chain, it is the soul of a robot. This is incredible. Having been the supreme magician for so long, Strange, who often uses the cosmic cauldron to observe the world, can be regarded as knowledgeable, but he is still amazed by the strange sight in front of him. What's wrong? Stark, who couldn't see the soul, asked curiously. Unexpectedly, they were really trapped by the game. Strange sighed, and stretched out his hand to sign at the server. But this artificial intelligence method is very rough, it's not a big problem. Kamar Taj's magician is professional in this regard. As Strange's finger flicked, an orange magic circle appeared on the top of the server. The circular magic circle slowly turned. The data stream that bound the player's soul was broken, and the soul was freed from the bondage. Fleeing in all directions, he flew in the direction of his body. Damn it. What have you done? Herbie's scream came from the horn, and his tone was full of surprise and confusion. It was the Dr. Strange that he looked down upon, and after a few strokes, the players who were trapped in the game disappeared. I just used a soul recovery technique. Strange straightened his collar and replied calmly. What are you talking about with an artificial intelligence? Tony Stark on the side rolled his eyes, and he was very upset by the situation that made others show off and he could only watch. So Stark vented his unhappiness on the artificial intelligence of Herbie. Anyway, you have failed, Herbie. Stark reached out and grabbed the power cord of the main unit. Stop. You killer. Killing Ultron wasn't enough, do you want to kill me? Stark's hand holding the power cord paused slightly, and then pulled hard, shutting down the entire console. Wait a minute. He is not dead yet. Before Stark could breathe a sigh of relief, Strange suddenly raised his head and looked at the ceiling. In his sight, after the host was turned off, Herbie's soul did not disappear, but rushed out like other souls and flew to the top floor of the Osborne building. I see. He has already copied several core data in the building. Tony Stark immediately realized that artificial intelligence is different from humans, and the data used to compose them can be copied continuously. Go grab his soul, I'll cut the entire circuit of the Osborne building. That's too late. As Strange's voice fell, the shield agent guarding the Osborne building saw several green goblin skateboards breaking through the windows on the top floor and flying away in all directions.